we are now webcasting. A reminder that as it is being webcast, those in attendance, you should refrain from making any defamatory statements. Ladies and gentlemen, if we could rise for our acknowledgement of country and prayer. Yass Valley Council recognises the Ngunnawal people, the traditional custodians of the land, water and sky. We pay our respect to their elders past, present and future emerging leaders. We extend our respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who live in the Yass Valley local government area. And I'd like to personally acknowledge Ms. Michaela Stock, who is present in the chambers today, who is the acting CEO of the local Aboriginal Land Council. Now we move to the prayer. Let us be still and remember the presence of God. As we commence our meeting, let us together pray for guidance and help. Almighty God, we ask your blessing upon this council. Direct and prosper our deliberations to the true welfare of Australia and the people of Yass Valley. Amen. Please be seated. Before we commence, I'd just like to introduce our acting Director of Planning and Environment, Ms. Kate Baker. And on my right, I have, sorry, I know you, Will, how embarrassing, William, who is our Chief Financial Officer and contractor, correct? Thank you. Particularly the big market. We have no apologies. Do we have any declarations of pecuniary interests or special disclosures, councillors? Councillors, at any time during the meeting, if you observe that you may have a conflict of the debate heads that way, please have no hesitation to alert me as the chair that you may have an interest to deliberate. That's fine. Before we confirm the minutes, I'd like to bring in a late report. We have the QBR, the quarterly budget review, to bring into the meeting, along with the second, the minutes of the extraordinary, minutes of the extraordinary council meeting held on the 25th of November 2024, and I believe the second mayoral minute just didn't have a number. It's now 5.2. The attachment was there, but it wasn't listed. Do I have a mover to bring these items in? Thank you, Councillor McGrath, followed by Councillor Barker, bringing our items into the meeting. Councillors, we now need to.
Yeah, so there's quite a lot of information.
Yes.
It's not really giving us time to read this one. I would, if an opportunity is that we have a chance to read this and come back and talk to the later meeting. This is quite important information given our current financial situation. Getting this as a late report is, my estimation, is just not actually particularly appropriate and suggests a pattern of behaviour which is worrying when it comes to the financial report. And the councils we've heard prior by Greg and others, so I'm certainly not comfortable with this sort of late report arriving on our desk a few minutes prior to a meeting.
Councillors, could I suggest if you were of the mind to accept it into the meeting in a qualified position to defer it for further review and note its late arrival, and that way it comes into the meeting so it can sit in our portfolio of documents. It can be accessible by the public as well at this point in time, and we won't be waiting for it to become accessible for the December meeting for both yourself and for the members of the public. Would that be an acceptable way to proceed? It's up to you. We can vote them in, or you can reject. It's up to you. In that instance, I think we might actually bring in them one at a time. I think that might be appropriate if there's any dissent. So the QBR review statements. Do I have a mover to bring back in as a late report? No. Thank you, Councillor Butler. Do we have any seconder? Okay. Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. Any debate on those coming in? Councillors will put that to the vote to bring it in, noting that you can give a qualified statement when you note them. All those in favour of bringing them in? Councillors Butler, McGrath, Rothwell, Burgess and Jones. Those against? Councillors Chari, Carter, Cameron and Flannery. The motion was carried. We now have the late report into our agenda. Thank you, councillors. Moving to the other items, in the minutes of the extraordinary council meeting held on the 25th of November 2024 to bring these in. Do I have a mover? Councillor Carter, Councillor McGrath, sorry, Councillor Burgess, they were too quick. All those in favour to bring those in? That's unanimous. Carried. And the okay, yes, let's also bring in 5.2, the mayoral minute advocacy for Parkwood development. If it comes into the meeting.
Where's this? Sorry.
So that's the mayoral minute. I just I note that I can bring a mayoral minute at any point, just as a courtesy. I'm bringing that in. Okay, so we're back to our actual confirmation of the minutes, back to 4. So minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 24th of October 2024. Do I have a motion for us? Yes, we have Councillor Burgess and Councillor Rothwell. Do we have any debate on the acceptance of minutes? I just want to note that I think a correction was made to ensure that Councillors Butler and Jones were actually out of the chair when the pool committee was being discussed.
I mean, just a question, there was a series of council committee appointments made in that meeting, and always been confirmed. So it doesn't actually record here if they've been confirmed by the particular council.
So that would have to come as a separate report because the minutes are the minutes. So probably should, actually that probably should be part of the report. Take that on notice that we actually need to bring that back to the council meeting to confirm those.
So that's 0.6.13 as well, which is the council committees in general, a series of councils that were councils that were also necessarily approved. So
correct.
Consider the report to say whether or not
so we
accepted them.
Take that on notice that we do need a report to come back and have those confirmed with Councillor Carter. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Right, I think we're up to the mayoral. Thank you, councillors. Oh, sorry. Oh, brought that in. Sorry. So, councillors, we now have the minutes of the extraordinary council meeting held on the 25th of November 2024. Do I have a mover? Councillors Burgess, Councillor McGrath. Councillors, do I have any debate? Let's put it to a vote. Councillors, all those in favour? Unanimously carried. Councillors, we're now moving on to mayoral minute 5.1, the financial statements review. I'll move the financial statements review. Councillors, do we have any debate?
Yes, ma'am.
Councillor Chari first, followed by Councillor Cameron. I'll start you next.
Madam Mayor, if I may, I would like to say that whilst I fundamentally support your proposal for an independent financial audit, I must voice my concerns about impartiality and potential bias. I was in the room when Mr. Greg Smith delivered our induction training on the IPNR framework on 7 November. I was quite impressed by his experience and insights into the current financial situation at Yass Valley Council. Madam Mayor, fellow councillors, as we saw during the public forum, Mr. Smith is a director of Morrison & Lowe. He's widely recognised as someone that has been involved in advising New South Wales councils in the implementation of special rate variations. I cite an article that was posted on the Morrison Lowe website titled, "Who's Afraid of the SRV?" with a subheading, "The need for SRVs is growing," and using the long-term financial plan to identify the circumstances where an SRV would be needed, where Mr. Smith is listed as a primary point of contact for subsequent questions. Also found another article on the Morrison Lowe website titled, "The Road to Financial Sustainability and Resilience," an article that details the circumstances around Balranald Shire Council implementing a special rate variation on its ratepayers, and I quote, "The development and analysis of the long-term financial plan identified in that most viable option was to apply for a special rate variation to the Independent Pricing and Regulatory Tribunal. This would allow Council to raise its rates beyond the rate peg and establish long-term financial sustainability. Madam Mayor, I am concerned that bringing in a former General Manager of Yass Valley Council who specialises in advising other councils on how to justify a special rate variation to their communities is sending a foreboding message to the Yass Valley, a community that is crying out for action from this elected body. We are all under increasing financial pressure due to the cost of living crisis, with no real prospect of a cut in rates by the Federal Reserve Bank in the near future. And we as councillors would do well not to prematurely jump to a conclusion of imposing an SRV onto the Yass Valley community without due consideration, debate and exploration of all available options to regain financial viability. Madam Mayor, please allow me to reiterate my key point. I fundamentally support your proposal in the Merrill Minute to bring in external support in an effort to ascertain our true financial situation. However, I cannot support the appointment of Morrison and Lowe for reasons already stated.
Councillor Chari. Do we have Councillor Cameron?
Yeah, look, I have a couple of questions, and then I'll perhaps speak to the motion a little bit later. I'm sort of thinking to myself, even though it's front page news on the Yass Valley Times, a lovely photo of your good self, Madam Mayor, why is this necessary? You know, this is an interesting proposal. I'm asking, why is it necessary when we've had consultants in place all year, since the sacking of the CFO in January, by SMS after 20 days? So we've had people in place looking at this issue, so why is it necessary? That's my first question. Second question, and I've noticed that you have provided a little bit of an answer for this 15 minutes before the meeting started. What's the process that's envisaged? Because I don't see a process here at the moment, and particularly how are councillors involved. Are we once again going to be presented with a fait accompli? This is the person we've chosen. What's the process? It's not detailed in the actual motion. Thank you.
Councillors, do we have any other comments? Councillor Carter.
Madam Mayor, my concern about this particular proposal is threefold. The first of those is that the plan that's being presented here is about what we do moving forward. And yes, it's always good to sense where you should be going. But as I wrote to you yesterday, this is a bit like trying to drive a car without owning a car, in the sense that we really have significant challenges about identifying precisely where we are now. Ever since I arrived into this place, I've been asking significant questions about our financial stability, our financial position, raised questions about how we were looking and funding, questions with respect to the Crago Mill, which we will talk about a little bit later today. Looked at questions that emerged in this around the positioning of waste revenue within the accounts to mask the particular cash position and other bits and pieces. I do note that we voted down that particular investment report for it to be improved, although your good self voted against that, which I'm glad you're now moving to see that there are issues with respect to the financial statements that we need to look at. The second point that I think is worth recognising here is that while Mr. Smith is well renowned, as Councillor Cherry has suggested to us, for the benefit of writing very effective special rate variations, and in fact it's in the very particular proposal that he sent to Council that we will look at questions like opportunities to reduce costs and implement efficiencies, to make sure that endorsed major projects are funded, etc. This is again a question of a kind of tunnel vision approach to how we
manage council finances and assets, which is about, we've made these decisions, we must deliver it. Who cares what happens to the particular organisation in the long term? We need to be thinking literally and laterally about what the right direction is for this particular body, given the cost of living crises, given the challenges facing large members of our community, from those that might be retired to people that have just moved to the valley because they want a different approach to life from perhaps across the border and other bits and pieces. To those that are vulnerable of our lower socioeconomic classes, for example, to get to a position we're going to say, by the way, here, pay a significant amount of money just because our council made bad financial decisions previously. What a message that sends to our community. And that's the real question we need to think here about, is this the right person to be conducting that particular review? There's a good chance that Mr. Smith himself may seek the CEO appointment. And we have to remember that the previous CEO that we removed only a short time ago was himself brought down from Goulburn Mulberry to give us advice on what we would look for in a CEO, and then themselves turned around and applied and received that position. There's a track record here that might be worrying for us. What we do need here is true independence. Someone that doesn't have an inside message about where we're trying to get to or what the outcome should be, to really understand what is, as the motion says, our true financial position. Our true financial position is not what we should be doing tomorrow and 4 years' time. Our true financial position is now. And in that sense, there are significant opportunities for us to consider perhaps more in the forensic audit space, in the forensic accounting space, to really understand where our challenges are. That's no disrespect to those that have operated as consultants for us in the accounting space and other bits and pieces. The challenge of being at distance, the challenge of our own internal systems, means that's where the challenge lies today, to understand where we are rather than trying to think about where we should be in 4 years' time.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. Do you have any other speakers to the motion?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Could you just explain, so in the recommendation, it says that a consultant be engaged without delay to conduct an on-the-ground assessment into Council's financial information which informs the financial statements to verify Council's true financial position. That is as the recommendation reads. I can't see here that it says we will engage Greg Smith from Morrison & Lowe. So could you please explain that, because what I'm hearing is that that is what is happening.
I'm happy to comment. Given the urgency, I believe, of the situation, I acted as quickly as I could to introduce this as an option so that it would appear before you, councillors. At that point in time, we still had the former CEO in place. I believed that this option of Morrison & Lowe, given the synergies of already doing the desktop analysis, the familiarity with Yass, given employment here 20 years ago, and since that time has done a raft of other roles. I did check if there was any connection with the former CEO. There is none. There is no association there. I acknowledge that there is a CFO hiring process in place, and that we will be looking forward to introducing a CFO into our organisation in the new year. But it's important for us as councillors in this moment, as Councillor Carter has pointed out, that we verify our figures are true and correct, and that we can move forward on our roadmap out. I believe the Office of Local Government is looking for that from us. Councillor Flannery, yeah, I hope that.
I'm sorry to cut you, I may have missed the point, but Councillor Butler asked you a direct question, which was,
So
as it reads, it's saying a consultant will be appointed, but as you've answered, you seem to have made a decision which doesn't seem to be the motion. So is that the motion, or is there a different motion, or do we not, or is there a process that hasn't been defined? Because
Correct.
what you've just said seems quite misleading.
Okay, councillors.
Sorry, speak up.
Yes.
I finished speaking though.
Councillors, it's not my intention to mislead you. My intention is to put before you a motion that has flexibility in the moment. And I think you will appreciate that when I put this mayoral minute into place, a lot of other steps have since occurred. and it was my intention to give you options. Should you not desire to proceed with Morrison and Lowe, you can widen this recommendation to a different field. However, I feel that time is of the essence. I believe that the Office of Local Government is looking for us to do this work. My
Sorry,
conversation.
Madam Mayor,
Sorry.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm just really a bit overcharged. So is there a contract in place? Do we know how much this has cost the community? Because there's been quite a few costs that we are now going to have to cope with. And I'd be really interested to know how much, if there has been an agreement, will that agreement cost us more money? I just am really I'm a bit alarmed.
Okay, Councillor Flannery, I'll just ask the acting CEO to respond as to the status of any contract.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Morrison and Lowe Consultants are an approved contractor on local government procurement contract, LGP 1208-4 for professional consulting services. This means that they have already been through a tender process, all of their credentials have been checked and approved by LGP, and the council is able to request a quotation from them to undertake works relating to the contract. So we can go, the procurement process is already managed, we would have to go to them for a quote, and I believe that the cost could be met through the financial contractor budget.
So just paraphrasing, there is no contract, there is a tender, someone that we have, a company that's eligible. Do we have any other companies that are eligible that we might be going out for, or has there been a verbal or written agreement that we proceed?
There's been no direction to proceed.
That's a follow-up question. Could you explain what your decision-making process would be there with respect to the cost of this unknown consultant contract that may have emerged?
Well, councillors, I would confer with the acting CEO to establish who was on this list that we could procure from, and whether the Morrison and Lowe proposal seems like good value for us to proceed with. I think there is an upper limit for this.
I think value is one thing, impartiality is another. I would like both to be assessed.
Through you, Madam Mayor, in terms of the procurement, we can use the local government panel contract to do the procurement, so we can go and look and see if there are other professional consulting services that would be suitable, and we can request quotations from them. We can do that fairly immediately, I would suggest. So I think that council though needs to resolve that they wish to proceed.
Sorry, through you, Madam Mayor. So as the motion reads, the motion is around the engagement of a consultant. I just want the clarification that there will be a process. I don't know if that calls for an amendment, there's a process to that engagement that we're aware of as councillors.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll just give advice around the panel tender and to council what they like to do with that information. Because of the panel tender contract that is in place, council can go directly to Morrison and Lowe and obtain a quotation, and if they are required to accept it, they can. Or we can go to the panel tender and look at the professional consulting services that are relevant and get multiple quotations for that work. That's just administrative advice around the procurement.
That's not a question, Madam Mayor. It seems like we do have a consultant sitting right beside you. I would have thought two desks down. Should we not engage the actual consultant we've got to do this work, one would think?
Councillors, it was my understanding that the errors that we were observing were as a result of not having the correct information flowing from the CFOs into the organisation. Now, I acknowledge that there has been some changes, quite large changes in that executive structure, and it's not for me to understand why that information was flowing, but it was my job to ensure that the information flowed to
and quickly, so that we could meet the objectives of the Office of Local Government, who are expecting us to right our ship, check our figures, and move forward with the roadmap out. I just want to speak to the, first of all, the comment from Councillor Carter that I outright rejected the proposal to not bring the report into the meeting. It was my intention to bring the finance report into the meeting, receive it, and then request that the errors be addressed. It's important to have the documents tabled in the meeting, otherwise technically it's not formally in our meeting, so it was a procedural manoeuvre. It certainly wasn't a comment of acceptance of that document. Secondly, Councillor Chari has brought up the issue of this is special rate variation. Would it be your thought that that is by stealth?
Well, through you, Madam Mayor, I think that the suggestion bringing in this particular individual is setting us up for that discussion, and I would like to explore all other options before we actually get down that pipeline.
I would agree, Councillor Chari. I also note that the Office of Local Government letter to us said that it is also understood that Council will explore the opportunities and consequences of different options for a special rate variation for specific projects, and while not supporting any one particular course of action, it is important Council consider all possible options to ensure Council can avoid access to externally restricted reserves in 25-26 as forecast in the long-term financial plan. I note that the proposal before you from Morrison and Lowe certainly does not specify going down that track, which is important to note. This is where are we at? Are our figures correct? And how do we move forward to the proposal, which is what the Office of Local Government are expecting us to deliver.
With respect on that point, Madam Mayor, just a question about that. My understanding of the proposal from Morrison Lowe was to ensure that projects that have been endorsed were funded. The problem we're in is that those funded projects are causing a significant part of the problem with our financial position moving forward. That seems to be, Madam Mayor, a case for a special rate variation.
I'll try and make my answer brief because I understand that we also need to get to other councillors and move on with the agenda item. In the Morrison and Lowe presentation that we saw several weeks back, if other councillors couldn't attend, I'm sorry that was the case, we saw that projects could be parked, services could be dropped, more income could be sought, and other avenues could be explored. So I think Morrison and Lowe were showing us how other councils had approached offboarding projects, and certainly some quite dire situations where things involved fire sales too. So it was a lesson in I think a lot of steps about committing to a project that you can't actually fund. Okay, councillors, do you have any further comments or speaking for or against? Speaking for or against, Councillor Rothwell.
Madam Mayor, I agree with those laws. I think we should go through the list of consultants, and you've got my recommendation on that. I think there's the way we should do it.
Can I take that as an amendment to the motion then? Okay, so that the listed consultants, suitable consultants be reviewed without delay and a consultant secured. Sorry, would that be appropriate?
Yeah.
Councillor Burgess.
I think this, what Councillor Rothwell said and these other men saying, we've got to go to some of these other consultants and see what we can do come later.
Okay, so we've got we're building an amendment. Sorry. Just park yourself there for Councillor Flannery while we adjust the amendment. I know that you need to speak. Oh, sorry, rather than a list, the list. The list.
just noting that that is actually recognised.
Knowing that
It's
it's
a bit-
considered that
So we just
it's an amendment.
Yeah.
Okay, that list of suitable consultant review without delay, and a consultant selected. So sorry, that's the list of suitable consultants be reviewed and a consultant selected without delay. Councillor Flannery.
Just one small but important amendment around scope, that we develop the scope that goes out to council.
So we can say that a scope be developed.
So
Right.
from the top. Thank you.
The scope, we need to compare apples with apples.
Yes.
Developed. Scope be developed. And then quotation sort. No, so develop a scope be developed and then quotes be sought from a list of suitable consultants. Suitable consultants. And quotations be reviewed and a consultant selected in accordance with council's procurement requirements, or something like that. Yeah. Sorry. Just give me one. Scope be developed. Quotes be sought from a list of suitable be sought from a list of suitable consultants. And a procurement process be undertaken in accordance with council's policy. That's right, that's very process. Maybe just add in there, to conduct. Scope is developed and quotes and sort from yeah. I would just add in that the scope is to include to conduct an on-the-ground assessment into council's financial information, which informs the financial statements to verify council's true financial situation.
Copy.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
So if everyone just has a quick read of that, please.
True or actual?
Sorry.
True or actual?
It's a difficult accounting term. What do you want it to be?
Okay, councillors, and for anyone listening at home, the amended motion now reads that a scope be developed, then quotes be sought from a list of suitable consultants and a procurement process be undertaken in accordance with council policy. The scope is to conduct an on-the-ground assessment into council's financial information, which informs the financial statements to verify council's true financial position. Councillors, you happy? Councillor.
Going back to my question two, what's the process in pitches? Starting to get towards a process, Madam Mayor, how are councillors involved? Do we play any part in this, or are we again at the end of the line? Thank you.
Councillors, we have a timeline that we need to respond to the Office of Local Government with accurate figures. So I think if we're going to move quickly with suggestions for the scope, we should turn our heads towards it and send in all possible options of what you'd like to see in that scope. I think the Morrison Low example gives us a good starting position, and I take on Councillor Carter's points that you'd be looking for some creative options. So I'm expecting Councillor Cameron lots of suggestions to come rapidly. Councillor Flannery.
So, does that mean that we go out to get the scope, go out for quotes and then come back at the December meeting, just as a timeframe? Or
So this is a procurement list that we can act more quickly on, which is really of the essence. And can I just ask a question about the CEO in terms of the scope? Are you comfortable that you have enough direction?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, but I don't have the staff. However, I will look at that issue tomorrow.
Councillors, is there any further debate? Councillor Cameron, I note that you've spoken several times, but since this is an amendment, I will allow.
Sorry, I haven't spoken, I have actually asked questions. I haven't spoken on this at all. But I might surprise you, Madam Mayor, that I would like to speak for the motion. I'd like to speak for the motion. It's a really great idea. It's a great idea. I'm just really surprised that I haven't thought of it myself. But I might claim credit at some stage. Perhaps it's because the last 18 months, I and others in the community have pointed out at some cost to ourselves the financial situation that we've been facing since the Crago Mill development loan was taken out. And that has been a cause of some serious issues as we look to the longer term repayment of that particular loan. And we've been talking about that, or a number of us have been talking about for 18 months to 2 years. What did council do in the past? Ignored the problem, accepted the assurances of previous CEO and director, nothing to see here, everything's okay, and again asked no questions. It's good to see now that councillors who were re-elected are now starting to get onto the same page, I assume. Thank you.
I'll take that as a solid statement, Councillor Cameron. Councillor Rosswell.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. I was just wondering if Councillor Carter could help with the scope and some suggestions with that.
Through you, Madam Mayor, it's actually an issue that would normally be dealt with by staff.
Yeah.
So if you could just leave it with me, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Which of that?
But thank you for that.
Councillors, is there any further comments, debate? Let's put this motion. Thank you for your teamwork, everyone. All those in favour? Unanimous. Moving on. I hope this one's an easier or better. 5.2, the advocacy for Parkwood development. Councillors, with the firstly, I'll just put the motion to the meeting.
Sorry, we're at 6.1, aren't we?
5.2. 5.2. So we put.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that that's not possible during the council meeting. Thank you. I appreciate your passion.
I'm on your list of speakers for 3 minutes. Why?
Excuse me, so you're not in our list, thank you. That's unusual. Sorry, 5.2, the Merrill Minute advocacy for Parkwood development. Councillors, I have dispatched a letter to the New South Wales Premier, Mr. Christens, regarding a request to fast track a decision on Parkwood with either two options: setting a deadline of 12 months for an intergovernmental agreement and drafting of appropriate legislation to enact the shifting of the New South Wales ACT border, or if Parkwood is to remain in New South Wales, setting a deadline of 12 months for an intergovernmental agreement to support Yass Valley Council's sustainability and a ministerial agreement on a special rate for Parkwood into the future rather than an by-part decision and associated comments. Councillors, this project is coming sooner than we could have ever anticipated. The long-term project for this was 2036, it would be coming across the border, if I'm correct. And now we're looking at this decade. And we're already seeing the impacts within our planning department and the need to be parachuting in positions to that are through probity paid for by the developer in order to develop control plans. As soon as the first development application hits our planning team's desks, we will need to be able to provide all the necessary services, and that is just simply unachievable and incredible impost on our current ratepayers and our current team. So I'm urging all parties to cast their eyes onto this issue and hopefully get some attention on it to bring forward a decision. Councillors, do I have any comments from the floor? Councillor Cameron.
A question. When the deadline is not met, what do we do after that?
I might write another stern letter. Councillors, I've also
It's a
requested.
brave letter.
I've also requested a meeting with the Premier, because if you don't ask and don't go, you may not get it. Councillors, there's no further comments or debate. I will put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. Unanimously carried. Councillors, moving on to item 6.1, the Parkwood funding deed of agreement. We have a recommendation that the deed of agreement between council and Riverview Projects ACT, PTY and be noted. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Butlers, and do I have a seconder? Councillor Charlie. Thank you, councillors. Do I have any debate? Any comments from the acting CEO or former director of planning, or shall I direct this to Ms. Baker?
Through you, Madam Mayor, look, this matter was brought before Council in February 2024 in a confidential report, and where Council was given information around the probity and how this agreement has come into play. I note that in the report I have stated, well, when I was the Director of Planning, I have stated that rather than a planning resource that we were looking at when it was reported in February 24, we are now looking at funding planning work, and that gives us more scope to apply the funding to various planning work that we will need to do, including the development control plan, contributions to planning, of which we don't have any expertise really in-house, and things like development of engineering standards.
Councillor Carter, a question.
Through you don't get to the acting CEO or acting director of planning. Given the New South Wales government's recent conversations related to large-scale housing projects, is there some risk that this might be taken off us entirely?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I've had a brief read of the proposals that have been put forward. I think the detail at this stage is pretty light on. So I think that until we actually see some legislation, it's difficult for me to provide advice, but possibly yes, it could be. But at this stage, I would say to councillors that we must continue to plan as if we would be the consent authority and to meet the obligations that are in the Parkwood LEP in relation to development.
We would still need to do the development control plan regardless of MDAs.
Yeah, the requirement of the LEP is that it be completed before the DAs.
Councillors, any other speakers for or against? I think we are ready to put the motion. All those in favour of noting? Councillor Cameron, you're not. Okay, so Councillors Chari, Carter, Butler, McGrath, Flannery, Rothwell, Burgess and Jones for, and against, Councillor Cameron, carried. Councillors, we move now to item 6.2, the plan of management, Old Murray Bateman Schoolhouse and Library Reserve. Do we have a motion?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I have an alternate.
Yes, councillor Butler.
I have an alternative to present to council. And I've printed some out if everybody would like a printed, Katie has them over there. And just, have we got it up on the screen, the alternative? There's plenty printed as well, if any members of the public would like to take one, so that you can read it properly. I don't know. So while it's been up on the board, for the purpose of debate, I call for a seconder.
Councillor Rothwell seconding, councillor Butler moving. Can we just have some time to read that?
Sure. I'm just going to sit down.
Yeah, absolutely. Councillor Butler, if you'd like to actually read that out loud for the purposes of our live stream.
Okay. So we're going to go with the alternate motion for item 6.2. Will read that 1, the inclusion of the playground in the plan of management for the Murrumbidgee Old Schoolhouse site be removed before being sent to Crown Lands. 2, the grant provider be contacted to request an extension of time due to undertaking further land investigations on other possible sites in Murrumbidgee following the lodgement of a native title land claim over the Murrumbidgee Old Schoolhouse and Library Reserve on the 15th of October 2024. 3, a meeting with the Murrumbidgee Recreation Grounds focus group be held before the end of 2024 to locate an area that would be suitable to facilitate both an all abilities playground and a BMX pump track if this site was deemed favourable. 4, council engage with the Murrumbidgee Anglican Church Parish by the end of 2024 to discuss upgrading the current playground and any other desired infrastructure, such as seats, shade sails and a toilet, on their site on Hercules Street and review the current arrangements that council has with the church in relation to the site. 5, that a report be presented to the December 2025 meeting to establish the Murrumbidgee BMX pump track focus group, including the terms of reference. 6, council engage with Transport for New South Wales to advocate for a safe crossing for the Barton Highway by providing examples from other council areas that have created safer crossings on the highways. And 7, the Honourable Aboriginal Land Council will be invited to collaborate on playground designs for any proposed playground at the Murrumbidgee Recreation Grounds and or on the Murrumbidgee Anglican Church Parish site. Sorry, it's very lengthy.
That's great.
And sorry, as a point of order, I might need to actually add in some of the recommendations that were in the original because it does go hand in hand with lodging the POM. So if we lodge the POM, we'll have to add those in. I didn't think of that, sorry.
Councillors, I need to declare I've noted that at point 4, where it says council engage with the Murrumbidgee Anglican Church Parish, my husband is a parish board member, so I will vacate the chair and declare a non-pecuniary significant conflict and hand over to the deputy mayor of the council. And I'll fill in that form while I'm at it. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. So as the mover of this alternate motion, I'll speak to the item in the first instance.
We have a second this one.
Councillor Rothwell second.
Sorry.
That's okay. So what I've done with this alternate motion is I've tried to capture as much of the Murrumbidgee community's needs in one motion. I understand it's a little bit different, but being a Murrumbidgee resident myself for the past, since 2011, especially with the BMX pump track, this is something that the community has wanted for an incredibly long time. And they have made a lot of submissions to council asking for this facility to be built. So while it's upsetting to me, I still don't advocate for a playground to be at the recreation grounds. As you know, I'm concerned with the safety aspects of that location. I do recognise that there is an appropriate amount of land there to house a playground, but I also think in the instance of looking at putting a BMX pop track, that we could also do an inclusion. So if we are going to the recreation focus group to ask for them to consider a portion of land in that area, we should be asking for that as well at the same time. So that's why I've included that in that. So in terms of the Hercules Street playground site, the community is actually very, very much in favour of upgrading the current facility that we have there. I have time and time again advised them that this is indeed church land, so we would essentially be putting a council asset on their land and we would become the managing body of that with a lease, a negotiation with them. However, I don't see that as being a problem, and I think that it would solve the problem of having a safe and accessible playground on the village side without crossing a highway with close accessibility to food services and outlets and footpaths. So that is why that is added in there. And I think it's imperative no matter what that we do re-engage. I do know that we have engaged with Transport for New South Wales in the past, but I do believe that that was quite a long time ago now. So I think that the time is now to re-engage with them. Because no matter what happens, we've got a lot of the community members crossing the highway to access the recreation grounds, go to the markets. So we really desperately need some sort of safe crossing there. So that's all I've got. Is there any other debate or comments? Councillor Farmer?
It's just a question. There was an open space committee that did a desktop study of open space areas. I'm just wondering, perhaps through the former Director of Planning, any other sites had already been kind of highlighted as having capacity. I don't have any vested interest in saying where they are. I was just wondering, because we did that, the open space committee did do a study to see where there was open space. And my second question is with respect to point 7, and I think it's great that there's a collaborative approach to designing the playground. Is that designing the actual playground, or is it elements of the playground? Because I assume that there's also other interest groups that, so it could be one and other interest groups that want to contribute to the design of the playground.
Certainly. I'll take that from one note, please. Thank you.
Through the acting chair, just in relation to the open space strategy, just really testing my memory. I seem to recall there was a number of recommendations around playgrounds in North Murrumbidgee and Hawthorn when that occurs. I seem to think there was a recommendation around this playground in Hercules Street. There could have been something about Jones Park. There may have been something about the rec ground, like this is off the top.
Yeah, I was just, so, you don't have to go through that.
Yeah.
You don't have to go through that. I was just saying that
yes.
Council did do a study into open space, so it would be good if we have a look at it to see if there was other spaces available, not suggesting that we need to move it, but just so that the options.
Yes. So
we use the information we already have before.
Yeah, certainly. So I don't recall other than, and I will stand corrected if I seem to think it didn't identify like this particular playground happening, playgrounds for North Murrumbidgee, and I seem to remember, but I can't be certain that it relates to existing parks. and the consultancy that related to the development of the designs and that for the playground that's proposed at the schoolhouse site did look at 3 sites, and that information was provided to councillors in an email about 6 weeks ago. So the second question around the consultation. We have given some thought today around, how procurement would proceed in consultation and that sort of thing. We would need to do a little bit more work around that. Potentially we would do, say, a design and construct type tender, and we may then build into that the consultation process. We just need to probably just think through how that could happen. We do have a little bit of time up our sleeves in terms of the funding to do the consultation, and our intention would be that yes, we would consult and involve the First Nations community and the greater abatement community. Yeah.
Can I just raise a point of order, Acting Chair? This seems to be talking about the expenditure of funds in terms of a couple of elements of this. And I just point your notice to paragraph 10.9 of the meeting code of practice, which suggests that any motion or amendment to a motion which if passed would require the expenditure of funds other than those already provided for in the council's current adopted operational plan. Must identify the source of that funding. And I'm unclear from this document where that source would be. So that should be in this motion.
So through you, Acting Chair, Council has previously committed the funds for this project. So the funding is provided for through a $750 grant. What does that say? $750. Yes, it would be very small. So there's a grant for that $750,000. Council's committed $225,000 from the contributions fund for the work, and $116,000 from the LRCI grant, which I can't remember the round. It has been identified. The project is identified in the current operational plan, and I believe that I could be corrected. It is noted for forward budgets as well, because the project will fall over a number of financial years.
So fully funded.
Yes, at this point.
Including the non-vehicles.
So no, so we would have to, I would suggest that potentially if there was going to be a pump track at the Murray-Bateman Rec Ground playgrounds, is that correct? The scope of the playground that would go at Murray-Bateman Rec Ground would be, we would probably look to reduce that. We wouldn't have to provide amenities because they already exist at the rec ground. And then we could look to incorporate the design of the pump track into the current budget, into the 700.
Madam Deputy Mayor, a couple of comments and just a couple of questions of procedure. First of all, can I say I commend you on bringing forward this alternative motion. This is quite welcome, I feel, in concept. However, I feel that there are quite a lot of complex issues that you've included in this that probably need a little bit more scrutiny. And as such, question of procedure to the Acting CEO through you, Madam Deputy Chair, may I recommend that we vote in seriatim as we did on Monday's meeting, that then allows us to explore a little bit more detail into those specific aspects that I'm referring to. Point 3, I note you mentioned Murray-Bateman Recreation Ground Focus Group. Obviously that was part of the previous council. May I also recommend that we look at specific councils within this chamber to be allocated to that. And I'll put my name forward, as I'm sure you will as well. And can I also say that you took the wind out of my sails. I had a big 5-minute spiel to speak on behalf of honourable and supporting Ms McCarthy's stop in the presentation that she gave to us today. But I feel that obviously not having had a chat to her since this has been presented, I feel that we need to continually engage honourable local and regional land council in this process, not just for the discussion about the land rights claim that they have currently on the old school site, but to foster that community cohesion and to step off on the right foot with Honourable and Yass Valley Council to demonstrate that we are willing to bring them along on the journey, not just to pay lip service and be virtue signaling by acknowledging them at the start of everything, but actually bringing them into the discussion and actually actively listening to what they've got to say, and then bringing the whole community along that journey as well to be more inclusive and to be more collaborative in that approach. So I guess my question is back to the acting CEO through you, Madam Deputy Chair. How do we go through that procedure to ensure that we vote on that? Do we need to move that as a motion?
Through you, Councillor Terry, thank you so much for that request. It's not something I've actually dealt with before, but if I could just make a comment, I suggest there's a number of hold points within that recommendation where we, as staff, we can't move forward unless we come back to council for further direction. I have never dealt with that type of motion before, so I'm just...
Yeah. Madam Deputy Chair, if I may, for those that obviously we're part of the meeting on Monday, what we're trying to do is vote on each specific component of the motion that the Deputy Mayor has presented. So we're not looking at a motion completely, we're looking at each component, and we should, or if we agree to, we will vote on each component of that motion, just for general awareness, and for those watching.
Madam Deputy Mayor, I'd just like to say, I think it's a cracking idea. It's a Marabite little love.
Thank you so much, Councillor Rothwell.
There you go, man.
I'll just respond to Councillor Chari. With the Murrumbidgee Recreation Grounds Focus Group, it does, so I believe it consists of any bookable user of the recreation grounds. So anyone who is a bookable user puts forward a head for that, so they form part of the focus group. But I do believe that we do need to vote on councillors to be a part of that group, so I'm not sure on where we're at with that, so I will find out. And then in Seratium, I'm also sorry because we've only done it once ever as a council, which was on Monday, so it should be fresh in our mind. Pardon?
I move that we vote on each council motion in Seratium.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you. So I'll put it to council to vote. That we will tackle this motion in Seratium. All those for, that's Councillor Butler, Burgess, Rothwell, Flannery, McGrath, Carter and Chari, and all those against is Councillor Cameron. I declare the motion to vote in Seratium carried. Is there any further discussion or debate on the vote?
I just, I think, again, I want to reinforce that I think there's some really positive developments here. I think there's a general question right across the valley around how we deal with broader cultural safety questions. And I think there's a really positive start here to work really closely with the Honourable Local Aboriginal Land Council and other Indigenous First Nations people that might be in our lands. And so I think ultimately the way that this moves forward is really positive. I think it was putting the Honourable in a very difficult position where effectively they were having to choose land against what might be seen as for other community benefits. And there's a long history of appropriation, sadly, in this particular shire. So it's positive that there might be beginnings of a better working relationship there. Ultimately, it would be nice to see exactly how these things are meshed together before we actually vote in Seratium, because we're adding bits and amending. I'm not sure what that stands and what doesn't stand. And it might be difficult to vote on the plan of management with the playground being removed without seeing the actual detail of that to some degree. So, as I said, I think there's some really positive sort of cultural safety steps being made here, and ultimately with some improved safety and the like, I think this would be an outstanding outcome for the community of Murrumbidgee.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. I will just take what you've said in terms of putting the plan of management through to Crown Lands in regards to how that looks then with our playground. I'll just have to ask the acting CEO, Julie Rogers, sorry.
Either's fine.
Okay, how that might look.
Through you, acting chair, I look at things, you just remove the requirement that the use of the, just think of the word, essentially you just remove playgrounds from the plan of management, and the remaining uses that are authorised in the POM, like they just remain there. So I'd also just need to say to you that in considering whether the POM moves forward, in noting that council is still the Crown Land Manager and you do need a POM, and that the POM can exist parallel to the original land claim, that if you are to move that way, you will still need to incorporate the recommendations from report 6.2, because they're procedural requirements that need to be met in order for you to move forward. So you need to resolve for it to go to the Crown Lands, etc.
So could we then, in relation to recommendation 1, add the, as amended motion, add the specific words removing all reference to a playground to ensure that's been done?
Sorry, Councillor, could you just say that again?
So to add to the words that the draft Old Marrow Abatement Schoolhouse and Library Reserve Plan of Management be notified to Crown Lands as the owner of the property, ensuring that all reference to a playground has been removed from that document.
Well, I think potentially through you, Acting Chair, that you could retain motion 1 as it is, and then incorporate 1, 2, 3, 4 sequentially after that, because council, if they resolve on that, is effectively providing that direction, and then we move through the administrative requirements for the POM to be proceeded to move forward. Does that answer your question?
Oh, real. We've got a moment.
Is there any other debate or comments or questions while Councillor Carter's? Thank you.
Take some time. Get it moving.
Get the wheels going.
Councillor Carter, are you suggesting that we amend point 1 or 2?
Point 1.
1.
Just to
And
add,
an addition?
yeah, just
to
to
it?
add the clarity.
So point 1 reads the inclusion of a playground.
Oh,
in the
sorry, I'm
plan
talking about the
management.
original recommendation.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, the original. Well,
I think that
what
then,
we're speaking to the alternate motion because that's what we have.
Sorry, the confusion, Chair, was that you said there were elements of the original motion that need to be added to this. I'm still unclear what those elements would be, so it makes me making it difficult for me to debate
Sorry.
precisely what we're talking about. But
Thank you. Now I understand. I thought you were speaking to the alternate motion at that point. So you're speaking to the original motion and what elements of that original motion would need to be included
Yes,
in the
clarity
alternate
would be
motion.
helpful.
Yes, thank you.
through you, Acting Chair, from the original recommendation of item 6.2, you would need to include all parts 1, 2, 3, 4 of that recommendation. So I would suggest that the alternate motion that's been put to council, that point 1 would be retained, so that effectively amends the plan of management, and then council would, the second one, then these recommendations in item 6.2 would then just follow sequentially in that alternate motion that you have, or you can just put a bit, they could become 8, 9, 10, 11, if that makes it easier.
I would prefer that it becomes 8, 9, 10, 11. Because when we vote on 1, 2, 3, 4, on 1 specifically, if that passes, then the draft Old Marrow Schoolhouse and Library Reserve Plan of Management already now does not include a playground.
okay, makes sense.
So we happy, we make that amendment.
So you need to take, yes, I accept that amendment, thank you. And just for clarity, I'll just let Katie know that so in the original motion, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, if we could add those to the end of the alternate as 8, 9, 10, 11. Yes. Should we have a seconder?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Seconder, are you happy with that?
Yeah, I'd be happy if we just voted for that.
Okay, thank you. If there's no other further comments or debate, we can start in Saratam to vote on each item as it stands. So I'll read it out. We'll be voting on the alternative motion for item 6.2. Number 1 will be that the inclusion of the playground in the plan of management for the Murrumbateman Old Schoolhouse site be removed before being sent to Crown Lands. Okay. And I see all votes, so who is in favour? That is unanimous. We'll be voting on point 2, which is.
Sorry, can I just ask one question?
Yes.
About point 2, based on Councillor Carter's question, could you just nominate who the grant provider is? So, not now, but just in that.
Yes.
Just so that the grant provider, because it's got the grant provider and I know we're meant to be nominating them, so just in that, you know, the blah blah special school funds or whatever it is.
Yes.
I just can't remember the name.
That's okay.
Just correct, sorry.
Yeah, correct.
It's not a native title land claim, it's an Aboriginal land claim.
Apologies,
So
yes,
it's
apologies.
I have fixed that.
Yeah, thank you so much. No, that's
Full
okay.
motion.
Thank you. And yes, happy to note the grant providers. So 2 will be the grant provider be contacted to request an extension of time due to the undertaking further land investigations on other possible sites in Murrumbateman following the lodgement of the, have you changed it now, Casey? Aboriginal title land claim over the Murrumbateman Old Schoolhouse and Library Reserve on the 15th of October 2024. And we'll vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Point 3 will be that a meeting with the Murrumbateman Recreation Grounds focus group be held before the end of 2024 to locate an area that would be suitable to facilitate both an all abilities playground and a BMX pump track if this site was deemed favourable. Put it to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor Butler, Burgess, Rothwell, Flannery and Cameron. It's unanimous. McGrath, Carter and Chari. Number 4 will be that Council engage with the Murrumbateman Anglican Church Parish by the end of 2024 to discuss upgrading the current playground and any other desired infrastructure, seats, shade and toilet on their site on Hercules Street, and review the current arrangements that Council has with the church in relation to this site. Put to the vote. All those in favour? That's Councillor Butler, Burgess, Rothwell, Flannery, Cameron, McGrath. All those against? That's Councillor Carter and Councillor Chari. The motion is carried. Point 5 will be that a report be presented to the December 24, thank you, council meeting to establish the Murrumbateman BMX pump track focus group, including the terms of reference. We'll vote. All in favour? That's Councillor Butler, Burgess, Rothwell, Flannery, Cameron, McGrath's unanimous, Carter and Chari. Item 6 is that council engage with Transport for New South Wales and advocate for a safe crossing for the Barton Highway by providing examples from other council areas that have created safer crossings on highways. Put to a vote. All in favour? That's Councillor Butler, Burgess, Rothwell, Cameron, McGrath, Carter and Chari. All against? Councillor Flannery. And number 7 will be that the Wanneroo Aboriginal Land Council be invited to collaborate on playground designs for any proposed playground at the Murrumbateman Recreation Grounds and or on the Murrumbateman Anglican Church Parish site. Vote. All in favour? That's Councillor Butler, Burgess, Rothwell, Flannery, Cameron, McGrath, Carter and Chari. Consider carried. Councillors, can I, I'm not sure if this is even, we're able to do this, but for 8, 9, 10, 11, would we be, no, we would have to just keep going, okay. So number 8 is that the draft Old Murrumbateman Schoolhouse and Library Reserve Plan of Management be notified to Crown Lands as the owner of the property. Put to the vote. All in favour? It's Councillor Butler, Burgess, Rothwell, Flannery, Cameron, McGrath, Carter, Chari. Number 9 is that the draft plan of management be forwarded to the Minister for Crown Lands under clause 70B Crown Lands Management Regulation 2018, seeking approval to adopt. Vote all in favour. It's unanimous. 10, upon advice of the Minister for Crown Lands that the draft plan of management may be adopted, Council place the draft plan of management on exhibition for a period of not less than 28 days. All in favour? It's unanimous. 11, should no objections be received that require significant changes to the draft plan of management, then it be adopted pursuant to section 40 of the Local Government Act 1993. All in favour? Thank you, councillors. I will notify the Mayor that she can resume her position as chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Good on that, consultants.
Everyone is happy, I love it. Moving on, 6.3, the development application for the distribution battery energy storage system 3 Turton Place, Murrumbegan. We have a recommendation before us that it be noted because it's going to be determined by the Southern Regional Planning Panel. Do we have a mover? So moved by Councillors Butler and Burgess.
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, Madam Mayor.
That will
Chair.
do.
I've got Chair.
I answered both.
I'd just like to make an amendment to item 6.3. I'll read out the amendment. Sorry, so that it will include now point 3. Depending on the outcome of the assessment report that council officers complete, and once the report has been made public, council reconvene to determine its position on whether a submission should be made that represents the Yass Valley community members' views adequately.
So if I can just clarify, Councillor Butler, you're not asking council to determine a stance for or against this tonight?
Not tonight.
Excellent. Okay, so,
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, I'll just advise council to get the opportunity once the assessment report is completed and is made available to the public to provide comment at that point. My suggestion to council is that would be the time that you would do that, considering that the assessment officer, like if you form a opinion before the assessment is completed or whatever, then that jeopardises we would have to go to a third party to have the assessment completed. So I would suggest that the council would do that at the time when the report's made public and they are able to make a decision. And that way the assessment report has been completed, the professional staff have made they've made their judgment on the assessment on the application, and then council can put forward its position. Happy with that, so
are you recommending we can have this or that we shouldn't?
oh sorry, yeah.
And I have a follow-up question for you before you answer. Given that we have over 30 submissions against this proposal.
37.
Sorry, 37. Can these things be brought together to show the bias of the council? Can we go with point 3 or we go based on, because it doesn't state either way. So we councillors know that we have 37 submissions against. Our amendment doesn't state a position, it just says that we want to read the.
I think that's fine.
It's fine, okay, good to go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to, because if we state a position, then our team can't then assess what it has to do for the development of that,
So
to
maybe-
apply in the skills.
So through you, Madam Mayor, given what you've just said about the 37 submissions, maybe that last part of that third recommendation alternative.
I'm happy to delete that represents the Yass Valley community
Yeah,
views
and just
adequately
should be
and full
made,
stop
full
should
stop.
be made.
Just bearing in mind we have two councillors who are on the panel.
Yes, we don't want to conflict
One, a delegate and an alternate.
Yeah.
Don't want to compromise.
Councillor Chad.
No, sorry, Madam Mayor, I'm just pointing at the after hours AC.
Okay, sorry.
Keep them cool.
All the important stuff.
Keep them cool.
All right, councillors, we have a mover, we have a seconder. Do we have any speakers for or against?
Can I just speak very quickly, Madam Mayor, on this particular matter? I think one of the challenges here is, given our current financial position, is to think actually again here. And one of the issues that we need to think about is how other local government areas have benefited from the way they've approached different energy projects. I point your attention to the Hay local government area, which has recently committed to, in that case, a mixture of wind farms, batteries, and my understanding also is solar farms. In that benefit, they've managed to have $33 million committed to funding to the local community. We're talking about things like building a swimming pool, for example, and that might be one way that you could look at that. And so I think those are things that we need to have in a broader financial management portfolio. That's a question. Benefits also from that are to every member of the local government area, $1,000 annually off carbons, for example, which, given the cost of living crisis we mentioned earlier, might actually be a welcome relief to some of the people. Also, quite significant co-investment with the local land council in terms of building and both employment opportunities, plus also spaces for questions like working on wetlands that happen to be in that particular space. So I think we have to recognise two things, that ultimately this is not a decision of the council, it is a decision of the Southern Regional Planning Panel, which I think Councillor Flannery would be at to represent our interests. So we're not the decision maker here. I know that there are 37 speakers against, but we also need to think partly about our broader financial position within the institution, and there might be some opportunities here to be able to continue some of the broader development opportunities that we need for our region by thinking perhaps outside of the square here as well. So thank you, Madam.
Councillor Carter, I might just follow on with your comments to the acting CEO. Do regional planning panel approved projects, are they likely to come with that level of state significant community enhancement fund along with it, or is it not necessarily so? Noting of course that the $4 billion Hughley project did not actually come with community enhancement fund.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I would expect it would be treated as, we could make recommendations about the community enhancement funds that we already are in place, those arrangements that are in place, and potentially we could handle it that way. But I would just say that this particular battery project possibly would not be considered a renewable energy project, in that it is taking electricity off the network in periods of low demand and selling it back in periods of high demand. So I think that will be something that will be assessed during for the development application assessment, in that those provisions sit in the development control plan. But I do note Councillor Carter's comments, and that is a position that Council has long advocated for.
Any other speakers to the motion for or against? Councillors, you're ready to vote, let's do so. All those in favour of the motion? Is unanimously carried. Moving on to 6.4. Councillors, we have before us a motion on Stronger Country Communities Fund Round 5 with Jasper variation. Do I have a mover? Councillor Cameron. And Councillor Rothwell. Do you have any speakers for or against the motion? Pretty straightforward. Let's put it to the vote, councillors. All those in favour? That's unanimously carried. Thank you. Councillors, item 6.5, Yass water treatment plant upgrade implementation. I have a recommendation that the update report be noted, the executed funding deed for 6.6 from the Housing Infrastructure Fund be noted, and the funding approval for 13.55 million by New South Wales Ministry of Justice through the New South Wales State Ad Hoc Election Committee be noted. Do I have a mover?
So I have a non-pecuniary interest in land that council has bought is was my mother-in-law's land. So that is being sold to the council or for my time with council.
So a non-pecuniary interest and councillor Flannery is staying with the room. Councillors, do we have a mover?
I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you, councillor McGrath. And second, councillor Rothwell. Any comments from our Director of Infrastructure?
No, I don't think so. There's a bit of detail in this report. We are still waiting on the announcement of the National Water Grid for the June round. We are very hopeful that we will get a positive outcome out of that. So I think we're expecting an announcement hopefully in December this year. So,
Councillor Carter.
Question to the Director of Infrastructure and Assets. Could you explain, one hopes that we are successful with respect to the water funding application. Could you please just explain the implications for us if we were unsuccessful in receiving that federal fund?
through you, Madam Mayor, so there was a resolution to council earlier this year that if we were unsuccessful in seeking additional grant funding, so we've got 50% grant funding now, we've applied for the other 50% through the National Water Grid. If we were unsuccessful, then we would be seeking a loan to fund the additional cost, which would include a rate increase of $100 over 3 years to cover the cost of that loan. The 100 per year up to a maximum of 300. That's correct.
Councillor
Yeah, that would be on board here.
Yes, that is correct. It's our next little.
Yes.
Councillor Flannery.
Just a comment. I understand all the measures that have been taken to improve the quality of Yass water, and it's a big historical problem. I just was wondering if there are any other, we're cleaning pipes, we're doing all of those things, but if there's any other environmental works that could also potentially be revenue raising in the long term, such as carbon farming. So currently where the survey ponds are, there's just a lovely paddock at St John's Wort. Hawthorns, there's significant bird life there, there's eagles that fly over, and other places have been able to raise money through carbon farming because that land isn't going to be used for anything. It could also improve our ecology of the area and reduce weeds and reduce runoff into the sediment ponds. Just would like council to explore those options.
Councillor Flannery, I'll take that as a comment, and I think that we might have an opportunity to bring something forward in a future meeting as a motion specific to that. Does that sound good? Okay. Any further questions, comments? Councillor Cameron, speaking for or against?
No, I have a couple of questions.
Certainly, may I ask away?
Okay, and my first question is to you, Madam Mayor. I think you have said on a number of occasions that we pay the 4th highest water rates in the state. Is this still the case? To your knowledge?
I think we may have slipped down to number 5, but I would hazard a guess that if we had an extra 300, we might be arm wrestling for position 1 or 2.
Okay, thank you for that. And through you, Madam Mayor, and to the Director of Infrastructure and Assets, of course, with all of this, we're talking about water quality, and now that we're talking about the possibility of large-scale developments around Yass and in Murray Bateman, I think we also have to think about quantity. The capacity of the dam. I don't expect this to be off the top of your head, but do you have an idea of the capacity of the dam? And I ask this question because the Greens during the election campaign had a meeting about water, And it was raised there by somebody who I think should know, that there was a lot of sand in the dam. And that basically there was something like 1/3 of the dam capacity was sand. And this is because over time, particularly since the wall has been increased, there hasn't been any dredging out of the dam.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. So you're right, the upgrade of the water treatment plant isn't going to increase the capacity of the dam capacity that's currently there now. We do have approximately 600 ETs available in our abatement, and off the top of my head, I think it's around 1,500 left in Yass and the Yass area. Our water source strategy has indicated that we need to seek an additional water supply, and at the top of the list of that is to get a pipeline from the ACT to Murray Abatement, which then can also supply gas in the case of emergencies. I'd need to take on notice the last time that we did dredge the dam. I'm not aware of when that was, but I knew it had happened in years gone by.
Historically, I think it was attempted, an attempt was made just after the dam was all part of that, and the consequences were pretty dire. And I'm pretty sure we got notice to not consider dredging again and causing that kind of disturbance until we had a fully upgraded water treatment plant that could, it was pretty ugly down there. But yeah,
Can I just ask two follow-up questions, just for clarification, construction assets, could you just explain what you just said? So the plan is for water from Canberra, if possible, to service the Murray Abatement area, but not Yass, is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, at this point in time, the agreement that we're seeking through the ACT New South Wales Government is to supply Murray Abatement for future growth. There is an opportunity to be able to backflow the water from Murray Abatement to Yass, and it is for emergency purposes, for drought and water restriction times. That'll be part of the discussion moving forward, that are we able to take the emergency part out of that and have it as a supplier or an upper cap.
Can I just fit a point of clarification? My understanding is that the price of water per kilolitre in Canberra is about $3.13 or something similar, whereas our supply is about $4.51. Why would we be not looking to increase what we take from Canberra, given our water is potentially of less quality, we're drawing from a source of 1.4, whereas Canberra water is potentially better? Why would we be doing that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, ACT aren't looking at supplying 100% of Yass Valley Council. They do need us to be able to provide our own water supply as well. They're looking to supplement Yass Valley rather than provide the whole. It'll be a decision that will be made down the track once that agreement is in place and the pipeline is built on what quantities we're able to filter ourselves compared to what does come from the ACT, and it'll be a judgment call then on what water's cheaper at the time and how we manage that.
Councillor Flannery.
Sorry, my question is directed to the Director of Infrastructure and Assets. So I understand that we have an issue where water potentially has been allocated and we have a water quality and quantity issue. What measures has the council taken to reduce its own water use in the long term, particularly around its recreational assets? I regularly run around all the ovals in Yass, all those rivers are on at all different times, and I have reported that I sometimes run across a rice paddy field. I have to tiptoe through it because there's so much water sinking into one area at Moore Park. We also have very high use water in our recreational areas. We haven't in any way tried to change those over to low use water grasses. In the playground, we put a particularly high water grass that needs high water use. So I just was wondering if the council had any strategies around trying to reduce its own water. That would, there is a cost in changing it over, but it doesn't appear that we've even flagged that to the community that that's a responsible action of council.
Yeah, through you, Madam. So we have been exploring those options in the background, so we need to look at what the timings of our irrigation systems are running, and there is a cost to that, so we need to be able to put sensors in the ground to sense when it is raining, that then we don't have the irrigation coming on when we've got 50 mil of rainfall the day before. We are looking at implementing that. The question about the drought tolerant grass or the requirement for less watering would obviously also come at a cost, I would imagine, if we had to go in place.
But we did have an opportunity with the $1 million playground that's been put in to have a low water use grass in there, but we chose not to. We also, in areas around council, we use roll-out turf. We do have an option of seeding. I think the council should look at it as being a responsible land manager.
Take that as a statement, Councillor Flannery. Any further debate on the noting of the Yass water treatment plant upgrade? Let's put this to the vote. Councillors, all those in favour? That's unanimous. Carried. Moving on to 6.6, the finance report. Councillors, you have a recommendation before you that the November 2024 finance report be noted. Do we have a mover? Councillor Rothwell. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Butler. I sense some reticence. Okay, councillors, mover and seconder want to speak to the motion or any councillors? Councillors, I think Councillor Carter, you seem to be getting to your feet there, or is that?
I'll speak to this, and I'll certainly speak to the next item as well, Madam Mayor. Look, I have to admit that I grow increasingly concerned, and one thing was just kind of frankly unbelievable. We've had OLG information sent to us about needing a report since around at least around the election time, and the first or the second notice comes in around about the 4th of October, followed by later information later in October. What I'm kind of amused by, but in a really unpleasant form of amusement, is that we're still waiting for this report. And I understand that we might be low on staff or we don't have the people there, but this is a serious requirement from the Office of Local Government, and if we don't move on this, if we don't start to help the council make significant financial management decisions, we run the risk of losing the council. We run the risk of administration being put on a notice of improvement or something similar. I know, for example, other local government areas in New South Wales that have had similar notices sent to them. They've had a full plan back within a week. We are now months down the track, still waiting for the report, and we still don't necessarily know. I realise there was an email today, but we don't necessarily know where we are. We have a late report which gives us some actual expenditure. We have not a particularly some explanation around variances. We only have an email about progress on budget with respect to the Crago Mill project. There's lots and lots of things here that we need a proper and full report. And I just have to emphasise that this is incredibly important. That the great risk is that we lose community voice through having an administrator put in to take over our voice, and we might be a very short-lived council then at one level, but that is the risk, and it's frankly unbelievable at one level that we are still waiting for a full and appropriate and complete report. And I know what the excuses are likely to be, but this is so important if we want to continue to serve the community, to be able to make those, we had a Mirror Minute at the beginning of today which suggested that we need to understand where we are. Well, this effectively is trying to help us understand where we are, but we're still waiting to hear where we are. So I find it, as I said, amusing in the most negative sense of that concept.
Thank you, Councillor Carter, for those comments. Do we have any further debate? Councillor Cameron, are you speaking for or against?
No, I've got another question. Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. I can speak for myself, but thank you very much for your assistance. Look, I just, it's Madam Mayor, directed to the acting CEO. And I know you didn't write this stuff. You did?
No, thank you.
Oh,
For noting
yeah.
that, yes, I'm not the author.
Yes, I understand that. We're going to say something on a bit of a tongue. Yes, there was.
In a literal way?
Yes, absolutely.
Are you alright? Would you need first
Yeah,
aid?
please. I just, in there on page 38, it says due to a misunderstanding of the progress payment schedule, more money was drawn down than was necessary. Two questions related to that. First one is, I assume that we can't put the money back. Is that because of the particular contract?
So through you, Madam Mayor, I've been advised that we did speak to the Westpac Bank about that, we haven't been able to do that.
Okay, thank you. That gives us a bit more understanding of the contract. I really don't understand how there could be a misunderstanding. If you, as you were one of the signatories, could you explain the misunderstanding? If you can, sorry.
Through you, Madam Chair, I was the second signatory on that particular transaction, and obviously, I rely on the advice, I rely on the advice of the first signatory in terms of authorising that transaction, and I note the issues that have arisen from that. Just so council is aware, I have today drafted a email that will be going to the staff that are involved in the Crago Middle Precinct and the finance staff, advising of the arrangements for the authorising of these types of transactions into the future and how the 8.5 million is to be managed going forward until it's expended. So quite aware of the issue, and I have moved today to draft something to these staff, and I expect that it will be issued tomorrow, but I've just got a chance to reread what.
If I could ask a question of the agency here. Ella, is there a role for ARIC to play in reviewing the new protocols, or is it more of a?
Through you, Madam Chair, I actually attended the ARIC meeting yesterday with Councillor Carter, sorry, not Councillor Terry, Councillor Carter, and William, who was sitting here to my right, and in the executive officer update to the ARIC, I did advise them of this issue, and I think that it is something that we could report back to the ARIC at their next meeting in terms of how we've addressed that.
I'm not sure if this is maybe a question that our consultant CFO can speak to or not, and I appreciate if you can't. But do you feel like the information that you were providing to the directorate and the CEO, the former CEO, was coming through to councillors in the correct format and accurately reflected in the documents that you had? Do you think it's accurately reflected in the documents that we were receiving?
To the chair, will be able to answer that question because it wasn't following the end of the process. So I was given the information, but it wasn't really following the papers that were coming to council. So I'm really sorry. Yeah.
No, that's okay, and I do appreciate your honest answer, and I think that as a system, we've seen the problem in that, and we're moving forward now to correct. So, Councillor Flannery.
I have two questions. One relates to the difference. So we basically have borrowed some money at a certain interest rate and we reinvested it at a certain interest rate. What's the difference? And what's the difference in interest rate between one and the other? And I have a follow-on question once I've done it.
To the chair. So the difference, the spread is around 1.5% a year between whatever we are paying on the loan and what we are investing in funds.
So we're paying interest of an additional 1.5% on what quantum? 5 million? So what does that work out approximately at?
Sorry, just wait.
That
Around
mentally?
8 million. 8 million is the leftover, the current leftovers that hasn't been spent from the 15 million that have been already drawn down from the loan. So the difference that you're seeing, so they're invested at around 5% and we're paying 6.5% on loan. So it's around 1.5% difference.
But some has been quarantined for payments, so not all of it has been invested.
Yeah, but even the council's main accounts, it's also an interest-bearing accounts.
Thank you.
So yeah,
Okay.
Sorry,
it's
I'm
invested.
just a bit confused, so quarantine for payments for Craig O'Neill or quarantine for payments for our operating?
No, for the credible.
Okay. So we are paying an additional 1.5% because of this error, and there was 2 signatories on the drawdown. Who were the 2 signatories?
Through you, Madam Chair, it's in one of the reports that's been in the
Sorry.
agenda.
Yeah.
Yep, so the first signatory is the Director of Corporate and Community, and it was myself. And I have noted the error, and I have made a statement here tonight, I acknowledge the risk that the financial delegations pose, and I have acted on that. I will be acting on that tomorrow, and one of the issues, once I can secure some governance assistance, is to relook at these processes.
Yeah, thank you. I must have missed that. In the first council meeting, we voted on delegations as a council, and I understood, and I'll go back and check the records, that the then CEO and Madam Mayor, you were given delegations of up to $1 million or was that correct? You were given certain financial delegations, and the CEO said that all major decisions over a certain value come back to council, so it's just to be confused as to
on land sales.
on land
Yep.
sales, okay, right.
Yep.
So do certain delegations come back to?
I'm not a signatory on a drawdown of $8 million for the Craig O'Neill, I can assure you.
No, that's not what I asked, I just was wondering
Yep.
about the delegations that the council decides on.
Councillor Chari.
Madam Mayor, the risk of sounding like a broken record, I'd like to reiterate the points raised by my esteemed colleague, Councillor Carter. On the 14th of November, I raised concerns to the former CEO, Mr. Chris Berry, and I addressed specifically the questions that were sent to Ms. Wendy Tuckerman from the Minister of Local Government, Mr. Ryan Honey, addressing all the questions that we were expecting to get responses on. And I presented a notice of motion which I do not wish to put forward to this chamber tonight. However, I wish to express my disappointment for not having the specific answers to those questions. Every single person in this room, elected or not elected or appointed, is very concerned about the financial situation within the Yass Valley. No one can deny that. But I believe, noting the outcomes of our meeting on Monday and the new appointment of our acting CEO, I think it's in our best interest to allow the dust to settle, to allow the acting CEO to take the reins and to demonstrate that she's, as we expect, willing to step up and take the responsibility and to show us that we are willing to answer those questions front on and to demonstrate primarily to the people of the Yass Valley that we're here to do the right thing by them, and to demonstrate to the Office of the Local Government that we are willing to meet their, not directives, but recommendations, which are pretty much do it or else. As Councillor Carter's alluded to, we need to do everything we can to avoid any sort of suggestion on there, any sort of circumstance that brings in an administrator to replace this elected body. And I'm pretty certain that we can all agree on that. So I'd just like to leave it at that, but I'd like to give Ms. Costa the opportunity to really step up to the plate. Thank you.
I think we all share the sentiment that acting CEO Costa in her role in an environment that I think essentially created that opportunity for the state going forward. I commend under some pretty trying conditions over the last 48 hours or more, acting CEO Costa has pivoted very quickly to look at these governance issues, and I'm expecting healthy results in the next month. Thank you. All right, councillors, we have before us the finance report. If there's no further debate, let's put the motion. All those in favour? That's Councillor Carter, you're against. I take it. Okay, so councillors councillors Butler, McGrath, Cameron, Rothwell and Burgess, and those against, councillors Chari, Carter and Flannery. The motion was carried. Councillors, 6.7, the investment and borrowing report. We have a motion before us that the report for the period July 1st to the 31st of October 2024 be noted. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Butler. And a seconder, Councillor Rothwell. Thank you. Okay. So, any debate? Comments? Sorry?
Does anyone open?
Sorry, I can't.
Please, so if anybody opening the forum, I'm certainly happy to not to speak at this moment.
The specific request at the council meeting on October 24th, and I read it for you. Resolved that the investment and borrowings report covering the period of 1 to 30 September 2024, and there's a date missing that 1 July. And this report be brought back to council to acknowledge what the discrepancies are. I'm pleased to acknowledge that those discrepancies have at least been highlighted in 1 or 2 lines. I think there's probably more explanation needed about how those discrepancies emerged, but some highlighting was good. But we were also asked to explain and demonstrate how the ring fencing of monies drawn down against the Crago Mill loan facility happens, and where we currently sit in relation to the drawdown of those funds against the bill. What I'm concerned about is both of those questions haven't been addressed. I can't see from this report how, in fact, we ring fence that money. I've been told multiple times that we do that, but telling me something versus what we do are two different things, and it worries me that given our perilous financial position, masked by waste revenue, as we've been talking about, may require us to use some of these funds. We know that $3.5 million of that have been sitting, I think, in the general account to be used for future payments. But what happens if an emergency happens? What happens if something happens at the water treatment plant, like it gets flooded, like happens today, for example? We might need to deal with that immediately, for example. I know we'd probably deal with that from other parts of the accounts, but the question, of course, is we still don't have guidance and explanations as to how that ring fencing process actually happens. And we need that clarity. That was the exact motion that was asked. And so it's disappointing that this has been brought back with a couple of highlights, but not actually addressing the specific questions that were asked in here. There's a question also, Madam Mayor, to the Director. I understand, the Acting CEO. I just want to go back to the question asked by Councillor Cameron. So what I do need to understand, it's an audit risk question. It's a question about internal control processes. Could you explain, first of all, what Acting CEO, what the actual internal control processes are with respect to drawdown of loan facilities, because we have a number of them. And could you, I acknowledge the error that was made, but could you explain what your role was in checking the information, checking the request for drawdown, checking against payments required and the like? I really appreciate that answer.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm going to take those 2 questions on notice. In relation to the comments that you made about the content of the report and not addressing the recommendation, the motions out of, resolutions out of the October meeting, I'm proposing, I acknowledge that. I also acknowledge that I was not the author of this report, nor was I the authoriser of the report. So I will request that the staff address those particular issues in a report in the December meeting, if you're happy with that.
Thank you.
And I know your comments.
Can I just continue slightly on my time allocation?
To the point, yes.
So it just refers to our conversation at the ARIC committee yesterday, which is that actually ARIC is really keen that we take significant control as a council strategically with respect to our financial management processes, and they noted with concern. I think they were pleased that we were interviewing some CFOs, and I hope that leads to a positive resolution shortly, with all due respect to the contract that William's been adequately providing for us over time. But more importantly, again, noting that there isn't someone that runs our risk management department. There's no one that's running governance at the particular moment, and that just raises concerns from the ARIC committee, the Audit Risk and Improvement Committee, in terms of our general processes. So again, if we're going to convince the OLG that we're on top of our issues, these are the types of things that we need to be moving forward now on, rather than we will deal with this sometime, because the concern is now. The particular concern raised by the OLG is, how are you going to meet your operational costs this year? Not 4 years down the track, but this year. And we're still waiting for all of the people that might support us in this particular decision. Noting we're down now, Director of Corporate and Community, we have issues with respect to the team that's there. This is of general concern for us. Thank you, Madam.
Councillor Carter, if I may suggest that as part of the scope of the works for the consultant that we're bringing in, I would suggest that some independent eyes be cast on the ring fencing of the Craybo Mill. So while I accept that the acting CEO is bringing forward at the December meeting the information that you're requesting, and also on how what are the protocols around the drawdowns, I think we also need to use our consultant and just get our bearings on that too. Okay, councillors, do we have any speakers for or against following Councillor Carter's comments? We look all done. Let's put this to a motion. Put this to a vote. All those in favour of the investment borrowing report being noted. That is Councillors Jones, Butler, McGrath, Rothwell and Burgess. All those against noting the report, Councillors Chari, Councillors Carter, Cameron and Flannery. And that's carried. Motion is successful. I was just trying to get a number on the total. Okay, 6.8, the audited 23-24 annual financial statements. We have a recommendation before us that the audited statements be adopted. Do I have a mover? Councillor Carter. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Rothwell. Councillor Carter, would you like to open the discussion?
Look, I don't have much to say on this one, which might surprise you, Madam Mayor, but all I wish to say at this particular point is two things which are worth noting. One, our audit is one of the most expensive audits in the entire New South Wales local government environment. And what that points to is two things. It points to, again, a significant question about our own processes. Because ultimately what we're doing is, and if one reads the report, these are small errors. They're not material errors in the way that auditing works, which is not above a particular threshold which threatens the credibility of the financial reports. But every one of those errors costs us money. And this comes back to our own internal systems. How are we measuring material? How are we identifying and the like? A lot of that relates to grant income. And the grant income space, I think, needs to be thoroughly overlooked. And this might be, again, one of the questions for the scope for the particular review. And one of the challenges, and I think this might materialise from some of the concerns raised by members of the public in different forum, of course, is that by not reconciling grant income, it starts to create discrepancies with respect to reserves. And that causes problems. Questions are asked about where that money is being drawn down from and other bits and pieces. Now, it's actually a grant reconciliation problem, but because we're not necessarily on top of that, it starts to create errors that need correction. And so, just to note that our audit reports are the most expensive in the entire region. And at a time when we are short on money, again, this seems to be something that we should take control of. It might come back to a lack of staff, but we hear that repeatedly. We need to act, we need to employ the right people into the space, we need to act in a way that delimits some of these errors. And a report from the ARIC meeting yesterday that the auditors commented that in some ways they thanked we were on time, which is positive, because we haven't always been on time. but we were on time this time. But the amount of work they had to do to get it up to be able to present the audited reports is quite significant. I also note that our acting consultancy, though, was not the preparer of the audited financial reports either. So I think it's important to recognise it's a separate contractor that does that as well.
If I can make a comment following Councillor Carter, it would seem that there are many benefits to being financially fit going forward. Councillor Flannery.
Yes, I obviously haven't looked through all the detail, but I understand that the council is running at 30 to 35% vacancies across a range of areas. It's very concerning to me that we are still running at a significant loss and we have 30% less staff. So somehow, I understand the former CEO, though I have it's only anecdotal evidence that was a strategy to not fill certain positions. And I wonder whether that strategy should be challenged, because sometimes, it's a false saving. Because we might have 2 or 3 people in the finance area, we might have 1 instead of 3. Some things aren't being done, someone has to roll on. So I'm just hoping that the council will address the vacancies and not see that as a way of saving money.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Just noting that Councillor Carter has left the room. Any further debate, councillors? All right, let's put this to a motion. All those in favour? That is Councillors Butler, McGrath, Cameron, Rothwell, Burgess and Jones. All those against? Councillor Chari, Councillor Flannery and noting Councillor Carter. The motion is carried. Councillors, moving on to 6.9, the 23-24 annual report. We have before us a recommendation that it be noted. Councillors, do I have someone willing to put the motion? Sorry. Yes. Move the motion. Thank you, Councillor Alan Brown. Councillor David Rothwell.
Madam Mayor, may I just ask one question? This was only just supplied to us, wasn't it? So none of us, we're noting it, we're not adopting it. Because I haven't read it, it was just handed to me on the table.
Yep.
I'd like an opportunity to read it.
Councillors, yep.
Through you, Madam Chair, councillors do actually have a version of the annual report. The main change that's included in the agenda, the main change is around the legal proceedings, and just the additional ones that were missing from that list have been added. They relate to personnel matters and NCAT matters relating to PIPA. They have been added, and I believe the rest of the changes have been minor corrections around date, like corrections and ensuring that the council report had the correct heading, which is not the 22-23 annual report, but the 23-24 annual report.
Councillor Flannery, if you would like to amend the motion that the annual report be noted, and we could also add something along the lines of councillors acknowledge some last minute adjustments for their further review. So we just add after that a sentence, councillors acknowledge there has been late adjustments that require councillors further review. Councillors, are you find that acceptable? Okay. Councillor Carter, as you rejoin us, I'll just read out the motion that's before us. We have the 23-24 annual report. We have that it be noted and councillors acknowledge there has been late adjustments that require councillors further review. Do we have any speakers for or against? Councillor Cameron.
Questions? Again, sorry. Look, I just know, they're really comments actually, more than anything else. On page 30.
Comments for or against, or just general neutral comments?
I must be against the report. I'll state it again.
Okay, thank you,
I'll
Councillor
speak
Cameron.
again. I think the report lacks a few things. With number 5, council induction and or professional development. It says there was no professional development in the 2023-24 financial year. Incorrect. There's lots of developments. I can remember a planning one that we went to with, I think there was Councillor Brown, myself, Councillor Abbey, I think was there. But we had a planning one, we had a statement. So look, I think there's been a lot of professional development. What wasn't happening in the last term of council was nobody was noting it down. I remember going to the governance officer at that time, and not the last one, but the one before, and saying, what do I do about professional development? We're supposed to keep a track of what we're doing, and we're supposed to, I would have thought, talk to that person saying, you know, where can I get more computer skills? Where can I learn how to ask more effective questions? You know, there's a whole lot of things that I could have asked for, but nobody was doing that. You know, there was nobody. That was part of the governance person's role to sort of monitor and encourage professional development. How much professional development have we done in terms of computers? Well, I think that most of us have done quite a lot, whether we like it or not. That's another situation. So what I'm saying is, the fact is that there was professional development.
And where's the register?
Yeah, absolutely. Where's the register? Who's looking after it? And how can we as councillors get a bit more involved? I also think on page 15, the number 7, the contracts awarded above 1,500, 150,000, I mean, I think they should be listed rather than just giving us a link to go to it. I think the report should be more detailed than that. I turn over to the page 16 with number 8, the amounts incurred in relation to legal proceedings. If we're talking about controlling costs, you know, I think some of the planning ones, we really do have to bite the bullet on occasion and take action.
I'm noting your comment,
Sorry?
Councillor Cameron. I'm noting your comment that we need to bite the bullet on some.
On some of those and go hard,
For you, Madam Mayor, is it possible to have that?
It's on the record.
Thank you.
My problem is though, is with the ones that have cost a fair bit of money, and they're the GIPA ones that have gone on far too long. They should be resolved a lot quicker. They shouldn't be 41,000 when, in that particular case, I believe they were told right from the start that you know, it should be fixed up fairly quickly. And I still think that we are too inclined with some of the GIPA ones in particular. We go to getting a barrister too quickly. So, yes, so I'm against the report because I think it would have been better. Thank you.
We'll take that as a comment. Councillor Cameron, any further speakers for?
Just in response to Councillor Cameron's,
Thank you.
when you were saying about the CPD, the continued professional development courses.
Yeah.
So on the Office of Local Government New South Wales website, there's a whole heap of them that are available to councillors. There was one that I spotted 2 weeks ago, and I just sent it straight to when Ms. Safranek was still with us. And she arranged it within a day for me to attend that. So it is there and available for us to, I mean, I know it would be nice if people sort of spoon-fed us things, but it is there and available for us to look and think, okay, that's where I'm lacking in that area, and I will then ask council to facilitate that.
If I could return the comment. I'm really basically saying that there's no documentation of that, and I think we need to have the documentation to say that we don't, you know, it looks like, you know, when you say there was no professional development of councillors, it's sort of basically mandatory, and we should have a record of it to say that councillors are going out and trying to learn more about what they should be learning about.
Councillor Chang.
Madam Mayor, through you, if I may, for the declaration, obviously, to say I was the member of the community that raised this question to the former Director of Corporates and Community, so I'd like to acknowledge the fact that there was some training being conducted and it wasn't recorded, so I congratulate the former council for being so transparent about it now, and I implore every single member of this elected chamber to continue along that path. As a member of the military for 27 years, I can assure you that if you weren't committed to professional development, you're out the door, and you have any sort of aspirations of growing in that space. So I commend those, and I commend Councillor Cameron for being so forthcoming, and to the Deputy Mayor for being so as well. Thank you.
Councillors, yes, there's Councillor
Just
Carter.
very quickly, sorry, I've got my chair on. There was a report received from a member of the public in relation to the annual financial reports. And this is a question, first of all, to the acting CEO. Can you update us on compliance with respect to our legal position here? So that would be, first of all, under section 418, subsection 3, subparagraph B and C. So is the summary being provided? And secondly, and well, I think this is, you today suggested that you recognise the right for someone to make a statement, but have we presented a summary on our website just to, sorry?
Relation to the financial.
Yes.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I have to apologise, I haven't got to the point of making the compliance, but the statement thing, and that was discussed at ARIC yesterday, but the financial statements are actually on Council's website. In terms of the annual report, I will say I did do a very quick review of the document, I think it was Tuesday morning, just to check that it was, how compliant it was with the requirements of the Act in terms of what needed to be reported. We did make some adjustments. I acknowledge that potentially there could be some other issues with the document, but given that I entered the acting CEO role about 9 o'clock on Monday night, to speak that, to say to council, look, I'm trying to run with these issues as they arise.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, councillors, I think we need to move on. If you're prepared to vote, further questions or comments? Okay. Councillors, that the annual report be noted. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Moving on, councillors, to 6.10, the WHS update. And I note that when I requested this report, it was actually a different report I was expecting. Oh, Councillor, I'm just on my own little, Councillor Rothwell, you are on your feet.
I'd like to move a different motion, which is on the screen. Surely? Pressure on, Katie.
No pressure, Katie.
I was going to read it. If you get a second.
I'd second the motion, Aaron, if I may,
They're all over this.
I can
Councillor
read the
Chari seconding.
just allow Michelle to catch up on that. No pressure. Could I just make one amendment to that, Katie, if you can just write in there, number 1 is that council notes the WHS report, and then everything's the same. Madam Mayor, I read the motion that Councillor Rothwell and I are moving today should read, point 1, council notes WHS report, and point 2, in response to the Safe Work New South Wales improvement order issued to Yass Valley Council in September 2024, that acting CEO of Yass Valley Council, allow me to just read it. Apologies. Oh, yeah, just read from the page. Acting CEO, Yass Valley Council engages an independent organisation to conduct a comprehensive review of workplace culture across all directorates of Yass Valley Council. This review is to A, identify patterns of misconduct, including psychosocial hazards. B, evaluate the effectiveness of current policies, procedures and systems for managing psychosocial risks. C, address the non-compliance gaps identified in Appendix A to the psychosocial gap analysis dated 12 November 2024. D, provide actionable recommendations to align council practices with legislative and best practice standards, including but not limited to Safe Work New South Wales Code of Practice, managing psychosocial hazards at work and other pertinent legislation stated within the gap analysis. 2, that the independent workplace review commences as soon as possible following procurement in accordance with council's policies. The preliminary report to be presented for council consideration no later than the February ordinary general meeting, with a briefing on the project for council, inclusive of a comprehensive action plan, be delivered at the May 2025 ordinary meeting, and a final report to council at its meeting in April 2025, subject to council being able to procure a suitable consultant to undertake the proposed works. Madam Mayor.
And can I just thank councillors Rothwell and Cho for providing that via the iPads earlier, because that's a lot to take in. Councillors, may I, sorry, I've just got a councillor on his feet. Please speak to the motion.
Council should be a fantastic place to work. It's got great people. You should be retaining staff, not pushing them away. Hopefully we can. I worked at the council 5 or 6 years ago, and it had a culture then. It's only got worse. So hopefully this report will help us identify what's wrong, and we can fix it. Councillor Chara?
If you could just pause for a second.
Yep.
I just wanted to check if what we can do in this motion is okay. Do we need to send it to QBO2 or are we okay?
So I'll just make a couple of comments.
Okay.
Just in relation to part 3, I think the dates, Councillor Chari, that you read out and that motion, are they still right? I
They
think
should
you
be
said-
correct with the advice you provided prior to the meeting.
So, a preliminary report will be presented to council no later than February with a briefing on the project. Yeah, and then, so I think we just need to remove from the motion, preliminary report presented to council consideration. Can we just take out no later than the February ordinary general meeting, because we're actually it's meant to be the March one, is that right?
Yeah, that's what we have to accept that.
And a final report to come to council, I think you said May, did you say May or do you want to leave it as April?
I think April's probably.
Okay, yep, great. And I just say in relation to, and I apologise to Councillor Chari because he did raise these matters with me today, and I have other operational issues I had to deal with. So 10.9 of the Code of Meeting Practice, which Councillor Carter alluded to previously, is that if council doesn't identify a funding source for a project that's not included in the budget, then a report needs to come back identifying that funding source. And listening to the councillors tonight, I really look forward to some tough decisions at the December meeting. There's no current budget for this, and council is going to have to consider what they would like to remove from the budget in order for this to happen.
Question.
Sorry, Councillor Carter, Councillor Flannery, and then Councillor Carter.
I think that this is a particularly important matter, and I, commend Councillor Chari and Councillor Rothwell for bringing it forward. I would also like, should this proceed, the facilitator or the person looking at the reviewer, to identify areas where the culture is very positive. When I run around the ovals, there's a lot of happy chatter while they're working. I saw the roads guys out line marking, they're very polite, very happy. I'm not saying you have to come to work to be happy every day, but they seem to have a very convivial mood amongst them. And so I think it would be important not just to focus on the negative, but where we have pockets of positiveness and how we build on those.
Councillor Carter.
Yeah, just a question, first of all, Madam Mayor, to the acting CEO. My understanding is we do have a work health and safety officer, but they were fully funded full-time. Not able to do that at the moment, my understanding, so they're working part-time. My understanding is that gap would be enough to fund the project.
Through you, Madam Mayor, as has been rightly identified throughout this meeting tonight, is that there are a number of gaps within governance, WHS, finance and risk, and I'm just going to take an opportunity, hopefully in the next couple of days, to look at how we fund those gaps, because it is quite, some of these issues are quite urgent, and I acknowledge the previous comments that you've made, Councillor Carter. In terms of the salary for the WHS position, and noting what you've said, yes, that's correct. However, I would suggest to council that it would be more appropriate to look at a project rather than a salary, only because we do need some options in terms of funding these gaps that we need to deal with.
So, follow-up question then. So is your suggestion that we take this motion on notice rather than pass it at this stage because there's not a funding source attached?
So through you, Madam Chair, council can, what the code of meeting practice states, that if the motion does not identify a funding source, the council must defer consideration of the matter pending a report from the GM on the availability of funds for implementing the motion if adopted. So I think council can make a decision, and I will bring back a report to the December council meeting.
Can I speak to the motion as well? Thank you, Madam. So, just very quickly, I think this is an absolute essential opportunity for us to begin to reset the organisation. We have made some important moves recently, so in favour of certainly of what's suggested by Councillor Rothwell and Councillor Cherry here, an opportunity, and Councillor Flannery as well, a great opportunity for us to reconsider organisational culture, to reset the institution. There is a significant number of people that want to work here. The stories, sadly, are though that some of the questions in council make it more difficult than it should be in terms of a place to work. But noting, of course, that there are great pockets, and so maybe we could learn from pockets where it works really well. But hopefully that can be spread right across the organisation, and then people will want to continue to work here or come to work here, and that will address some of our shortfall with respect to staff absences at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. Councillor Charity.
Madam Mayor, I've just got a fair statement if I may. Look, I note the likelihood that we're going to get some pretty good support for this. However, it's important just for me to say a few things, and I'd first and foremost like to thank Councillor David Rothwell for his passion in bringing this to my attention very early after our election, and I know that this is a topic that is very close to his heart, as it is to mine, and I'll state why. Madam Mayor and my fellow councillors and those members of the community still with us this evening. Today I present and advocate for this motion, but it's not just about policy or procedure, but about the core values that we as a council must embody: accountability, fairness and respect. It is a motion to conduct an independent, comprehensive review of our workplace culture with the aim of addressing serious allegations of misconduct and ensuring the health and safety of every employee within Yass Valley Council. As a Managing Director of SAC Consulting, I've had the privilege of working on issues of workplace culture and respect for quite some time. And as you are all well aware, I spent 27 years in the Australian Army, personally experiencing systemic workplace culture transformations. More specifically, I've seen firsthand the transformative impact of the Respect at Work legislation through my work with SAC, and specifically alongside my wife, Dr. Sky Cherry, who is one of Australia's most preeminent experts when it comes to Respect at Work legislation. So I'd just like to continue on by saying that on Wednesday, 27th of November, which was yesterday, all councillors received a deeply concerning letter signed by the General Secretary of the United Services Union, New South Wales. This letter details some serious allegations of workplace bullying within Yass Valley Council. Allegations that which I will not go into this evening. But if they are proven to be true through this investigation, they indicate a significant breach of trust and duty of care. These allegations demand their immediate and decisive action. To fail in addressing them will not only harm those affected, but also tarnish the reputation of this council and risk further breaches under the Fair Work Act 2009 Commonwealth, further exposing council to adverse action, significant penalties and severe reputational damage. The independent review that Councillor Rothwell and I are proposing this evening will not only shed light on these allegations, but will also identify systemic gaps in Yass Valley Council's entire workplace culture. This investigation and its action plan will ensure the implementation of the recommendations included within the Safe Work New South Wales Improvement Notice, holding the elected body accountable as stewards of this council's reputation and demonstrating the duty of care to our employees. Madam Mayor, this is not about pointing fingers. It is about ensuring that every worker within our organisation feels valued, supported and protected. It is about embedding principles of respect and integrity into every layer of our workplace. Esteemed colleagues, we are at a pivotal moment. These allegations, combined with the improvement notice issued by Safe Work New South Wales, present us with an opportunity to lead by example. This is our chance to demonstrate to our community and our staff that we are serious about creating a workplace where respect transparency and safety are not just ideals but realities. Passing this motion is not just the right thing to do, it is essential. It is our moral and legal obligation to ensure that the culture within Yass Valley Council reflects the standards we expect of others and ourselves. Let us act decisively with integrity and courage to address these issues and pave the way for a stronger, more resilient council that ultimately seeks to continue to serve the Yass Valley community. I urge all of you, my fellow councillors, to support this motion, not just for those who have been impacted by the issues raised, but for the future of Yass Valley Council.
Councillor Flannery.
Given there was some nodding, do we also have, are we amending that motion to identify pockets of positiveness? It's not really the words to use, but up to 3 and a bit hours, but you know, areas within council or council staff that you know, are cooperative, functioning well, or something like that, so that we look at, is that a personality or is it a structural measure?
So where do we put that in?
I would put it under A, so identify areas that, well, before A, identify where things are going well, and then identify where things are not going so well.
Thank you. So A, identifying
areas of council that are, where workplace culture is positive.
Thank you. Yeah.
Council organisation, something like that, we can just, the intent is there.
Yep. Councillors, as the chair, I rarely speak to the motion for very long, and I will give the acting secretary an opportunity to speak. I think what has triggered this motion, and it is good that there is a response to the issues that have been triggered by this motion, and I commend the motion. But I want to point out that everywhere I've been in council, I have seen positive workers doing the very best they can with the limited resources that they have to serve our community with a cheerful heart. I think what we're looking at in some of these instances is potentially and quite definitely not the norm, but to ignore it, any incidences, and I take it that they're alleged, is not good, and we need to investigate whether they're true. Now, I'll pass you on to the acting CEO to make some comments.
Through you, Madam Chair. I just think first we need to note for the record that these are allegations of which, I'm going to state quite clearly, I have not been advised by any councillor, as far as I know, that you received a letter from the USU about these matters. I'll stand corrected if there's an email in my inbox. But out of respect for the staff, I should have been advised. And note, for the record, so the councillors are aware, there are a number of staff who watch the live stream of the council meeting. We have very good staff who undertake tasks in our community and work for the council who have to tolerate abuse on Facebook, abuse to their face, abuse over the phone, abuse in emails. I could produce you hundreds of emails of abuse just in the last probably 6 months. The staff are a very important asset to our council. They work hard to do what they need to do for this community. And I note, I support the motion that's been put to council, and I have stated that today. But I'm a little bit disappointed that a letter has been sent to the council and that no one has thought, unless I have missed it in my emails, to notify me of that matter, and the first time I hear about it is in the council chamber.
Can I just stress that? Sorry. I suspect this is part of the transition question. The reason I didn't forward it to the acting CEO is that it was received, my understanding, by email to council@yass.newsouthwales.gov.au on the 19th of November. So council also.
Okay, so I'll take that on notice, but I'm not entirely certain that it's appropriate forum for this to be raised, noting that council staff watch the live stream, and I can guarantee you tomorrow I'm going to be asked about the comments that have been made tonight.
Thank you. Councillors, you have a motion before you. Is there any further speakers for or against? Councillor Flannery, I think it showed a lot of merit in your thought processes to pick up that we need to also emphasise what's good in our workforce. Thank you for your comments. Okay. Councillors, let's put this to the vote. All those in favour? That motion is passed unanimously. Item 6.11, social media policy. Councillors, we have a motion before us that if no substantial submissions are received, the policy be adopted. Do we have any, first of all, do we have a mover?
I'll move as recommended.
Okay, Councillor McGrath. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Butler.
I'm struggling to get up, that's what I can see.
Debate.
Can't get a second.
Come on, councillors, we don't want to be here all night. If you have something to say, I want you to get to your feet and seize the day. Okay, councillors, if there's no debate required, let's put this to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimously passed. Item 6.12, could I suggest, councillors, that we block defer 6.12, 6.13 and just grab this. 6.12, 6.13 and 6.16 and defer these to our February meeting, noting that the authors of these reports are not present and that given Council's situation at present, I think we would be best placed to give a more considered approach to our committees, particularly after we've had a deep dive into our financials and to assess actually how these committees might assist us do our role, and also give us an opportunity to get some on board some staff members for the risk management framework review and the draft public interest disclosure policy. Are you happy to move those to defer? Moved by Councillor Butler, seconded by Councillor Rothwell. Any debate? Councillor Carter.
What were the numbers? Sorry.
Sorry, the numbers.
The numbers.
The numbers again, so that's
Sorry.
that's okay. Let's take our time and get it right. 6.12, which is the risk management framework review. 6.13, which is the draft public interest disclosure policy. And 6.16, which is the committee review. If we were to defer that to February, I think we'd be in a better position to address them. Councillor Carter.
Again, just a couple of comments briefly, Madam Mayor. The first of those, I think, is that Eric has implored us to be, as a council, inventive when it comes to the question of how we look for inventive and innovative when it comes to the way that we understand things like risk management with the institution. There have been a number of local government authorities that have taken different approaches rather than traditional put an advert out, have someone apply us, and we might want to do that. And that means, open calls for expressions of interest, going to meet people at various parts around the valley to see where our skill sets are. And it dovetails into my concern generally at the moment around the committee review process. At a time of relative crisis, I know that the report notes, and we'll talk more about this of course in the February meeting, that we as councillors represent the interests of the community. Yes, at one level we do, but we have to note that our community themselves are a fantastic resource. They know more about many of these things that than any of us would do. And the challenge of any representation space is how do you judge all those different interests? And so at a time of difficulty, at a time of financial challenge, it seems odd to retract or move away from the community. In fact, one would suggest, as was suggested in the wording today, would we not lean more into the community to support what we're trying to do as a community organisation? So I look forward to a further debate about this, but we have to recognise that at one level, the kind of cost savings envisaged in that report are not really cost savings. They're a faux sense of cost savings because we are a community institution. We are there for the community. And so to say that we're not really able to consult and work with them seems at odds with our very mission as a council itself. Thank you.
Councillor Flannery.
I support the deferment of the motions, particularly around item 6.16, and I just concur with Councillor Butler's view on committees. In other areas that I've worked, we had forward-thinking committees, which is not a great word for a committee, but a forward-thinking one, but something that tried to take a strategic approach, so there was time taken out, and there was something that wasn't just project-based, where we deal with here and now. It was how we could bring innovation together that might draw on the business chamber, it might draw on other areas that I would like everything not to look at minimising, it can look at refreshing, but something that's forward-thinking and more holistic than just the here and now approach and must-have approach.
Councillors, if there's no further comments or need for debate, to put the motion to block move these items. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Moving on to item 6.14, councillors, you have a recommendation.
I'll make the recommendation.
Thank you, councillors McGrath and Burgess. Do we have any press? Anyone speaking for or against?
Just pleased to be here.
Okay. I have a question. I have a question, you'll be pleased to know, Councillor Cameron.
Glad you're following my example.
That in item 2, it says no respective donations to community halls be granted, noting that community halls have been alerted that if they have charity status, they're automatically able to apply. But without prejudice, if documentation came forward showing that they had advised council in the past of their charity status in prior years but weren't rated as such by us, would we consider it?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think this relates to a specific board. Really have been at the periphery of this issue, but my understanding is we had done searches around whether or not that information was received, and I believe, but I can't be certain, that the particular association was asked to provide that documentation. I'm not sure if we received it. I would suggest that no, the council not do retrospective donations, but yeah, okay. Also given our financial situation.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so councillors, we have a recommendation before us. It's been moved and seconded by Councillor Graham Burgess. Debate. Councillor Chari.
Madam Mayor, through you, I think it's important to recognise all the community associations and pro-associations throughout the Yass Valley. Look, I personally am involved within the Murray Basin Community Association, and I note that we have members of the executive in the forum here today. But also broader, that there are every single organisation within the Yass Valley that provide a lot of services through volunteers to the Yass Valley community, and I'd just like to acknowledge them in an open forum.
Thank you, Councillor Chari, and I know that you were speaking for the motion.
Yes.
Okay. Councillors, we have a time limit of 7:53 for our meeting today. I think we have an emergency extension of half an hour if we need to, but let's keep moving forward at 7:30 right now. All those in favour of this motion? Carried. Let's keep trudging forward. Councillors, we have before us item 6.15, council surplus land. Do I have a mover on the motion that we have these properties be placed on the market once the outstanding, and there are no words there, but I imagine they mean the outstanding works that need to be done. Before we actually put it, I have a question for the Director of Infrastructure. Where it says the former sales be placed on the market once the remediation has been completed and land set aside for existing and future water infrastructure, can we place it on the market as is? And if we did that, would we be losing money, or is it that an unknown quantity? I thought it was an established quantity that we were going to spend on remediation.
Through you, Madam Mayor, so there is $250,000 allocated in the current financial year to do the contamination clean-up or the decontamination of the site. We do have the Yass water main run diagonally across the site, so we would have to subdivide the lot and also allow for a future reservoir on that site as well. So it would be the matter of doing the subdivision, and we were in discussions, or looking into whether or not how we go about selling land that is contaminated.
Okay, so we have an unknown option of selling as is, and a potential budget saving of 250k if we don't conduct remediation ourselves, just, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I just question whether that's actually a saving, because money's identified for works, but if you don't get a place for a reservoir, it could be at a cost. I was just wondering whether there was a strategic view that, I just don't think we should rob Peter to pay Paul and then have a higher cost in another area which is unknown. So if we had no spot for a reservoir, for example, we might then have to purchase land.
Through you,
No, I'll let you.
So we're not looking to have to sell all the land and have to purchase another site. We're talking about not decontaminating the site, but subdividing it so that we did still have space for the future reservoir, and also to protect the existing water main that runs along the site.
Yes, I understand that, but if we didn't, I thought you were saying that we wouldn't therefore proceed with the subdivision. But you're saying we're going to proceed with the subdivision. Is that, so the subdivision is not part of the decontamination money? Separate?
Separate.
Also, I have a question for the Director. With the Goodra Digby Centre, if we place, it says to place it on the market once the staff have been relocated to the Crago Mill. Is there any benefit in putting it on the market for an EOI right now, with the option of a commercial lease back for whatever time's remaining that the staff are required to be there?
Through you, Madam Mayor, so that we're saying we're going to sell it out now and then lease it back.
So in the short term, so the purchasers, the purchaser, they may not want to use it straight away, they could have an income stream. Is that a potential option?
Through maybe, yes, it would be a potential option. We would also need to subdivide that land as well, so the Goodra Digby Centre itself is on a larger lot, which includes the old depot site there. I think it's around 3,000 square metres, so down here, the site, the centre itself is only sort of a lot smaller than that size, sort of 400 square metres, I think so. It would have to be another subdivision because the rest of the land is also contaminated. There's fuel tanks and all sorts of things in the site.
So the whole idea behind this is to raise the money that should have been organised over the last 4 years. Is there any benefit to doing any of these things, or is it cost prohibitive in terms of the contamination? I have no visibility on how bad the contamination is on Goodra Digby Centre.
Through you, Madam Mayor, that there are underground fuel tanks in that, so there would be, we need to do a contamination report for starters, and as we've just found out on the Crago Mill site, it is a costly and timely exercise. But if we were to subdivide the site, you would then be able to sell off the Goodra Digby Centre itself, not the depot site, and then we would obviously retain that for operational purposes as well.
Councillor Cameron, would you like to move a motion?
No.
You'd like?
No.
Okay, I think we better get a motion on the table.
Well, I was going to make a comment because I think there's a reluctance to move this and to second it, because I think Sorry, can I make a comment?
I think we better determine, I think
I can stand here
yes, thank you.
occasionally. Can I make a comment? Sorry.
Very quickly, because we have no motion on the table right now.
Okay, I know you have no motion on the table. This is a bloody minefield, these four propositions. We're talking about getting somebody in to have a look at the financial situation. We've got to bloody well do that first before we start thinking about what we're going to sell. I think, you know, the Deputy Mayor made a good comment the other day. We're in you know, if you go around all the real estate agents, the market's flat, it's really low. You know, Discovery Drive, you won't get the money that you're looking for there. I think number 4 really worries me. You know, we're going to have a council workshop about options for Hawthorn, then we're going to make a decision without the Murraybateman community being involved. That's ridiculous. There's a lot wrong with this motion, and that's why I think, you know, it's a mess, it's a minefield, forget about it for a while. Forget about it, not till December, about maybe February or March. That's my suggestion.
Councillors, do I have a motion on the table to do anything?
You want?
Yeah, I'd like to move a motion that we don't sell any of this stuff yet until we find out the financial, what's going on with the council.
I'll second that.
Okay, so instead of the motion before us, we have a motion to reject the report to sell until the further financial investigation is undertaken. That's a wise decision. All right.
Through you, Madam Chair, just to note that the resolutions of council from November 2020 still stand, but obviously we will, these particular forms supersede those, but the others still stand.
Perhaps I can come back to it. All right, councillors, we have a new motion.
Oh, sorry, can we just, so can I just clarify, Discovery Drive is actually funded, it's actually budgeted for this year to be finalised and to go into the market, which is in accordance with the November 2020 resolution.
That is a lot.
Except that, Madam Mayor, it presupposes an action. It says we're going to approve something, and that would be slightly a breach of process. I think the wording should be if rather than once.
Which?
Around the Discovery Drive, we place the market once the development application has been approved. Once a road presupposes an action, we need to consider that.
It's actually, I'll just clarify, yes, I appreciate that, Councillor Carter, that you've made that statement and noting that I actually like that recommendation. But the development application for that particular stage has actually been approved, and it's a modification that is going to be dealt with that would be lodged, and that is noted in the attachment to this report. So stage 3 is actually approved. It's a modification to that stage. Lodged with council.
So councillors,
So we can take out the words approved, I appreciate it.
do you want to, councillors, do you want to proceed with Discovery Drive or not? It seems to be the one piece of low-hanging fruit that is not contaminated.
I think so. Still Discovery Drive anyway.
So lifting up item 3, that Discovery Drive be placed on the market once the development application has been approved.
Determined.
Oh, sorry, be determined.
That's pretty good tonight.
Week.
Okay, councillors, just so I can. Sorry. So the resolution is now that council place, I appreciate the solidarity, the council place Discovery Drive lots. We don't want to alarm the residents of Discovery Drive itself. The council place Discovery Drive lots in council's ownership, lots in council's ownership on the market. If the development application is determined, my tents are all over the shop.
Yeah, so if we could just say that council placed the Discovery Drive, and I think it's the intention to sell director of infrastructure, sell it as one lot. We're not actually carrying through the subdivision, so just noting that it is one lot that council will be selling. So council placed the Discovery Drive lot in council's ownership on the market, subject to the modification of development application determination.
We should need to remove the 3.
Yep.
While the typing's going, may I just ask a question, not about the motion, but just about the council process? Do we assess the market to see what the impact of council selling land, say if we had, as a hypothetical, if all those lots were lots, individual lots, would we assess that there might be other people, other private developers around that we could influence, affect the market by us bringing things forward? I mean, you don't have to answer it now, I just was wondering whether we ever look at the impact on the private operators.
So
Not specifically about this.
yeah,
but if we-
I'll just make a comment about Discovery Drive, just through you, Madam Chair. I believe I wasn't employed by council, but I think council did buy Discovery Drive with the view of actually doing this. In terms of how it impacts on the private market, no, we don't, because we are an operator in our own right. And it's not, I acknowledge it's not a space that we would normally go into, but we do own these properties.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I would, I'd be comfortable with having a councillor workshop in relation to options for Hawthorn. I don't think that is, it's not tying us to anything, and I think the more information we can have from the earliest stage on what that is and looks like will give us the ability to inform the community a lot better. So I would be happy to move forward with that.
Councillor Burgess, are you happy with that amendment? Okay. So we have a motion before us that is the council place the Discovery Drive lot in council's ownership on the market subject to the modification of the development application. A councillor workshop be held in relation to options for Hawthorn, and that council rejects the following properties to sell until further investigation is, let's put the word undertaken. And these include the former sale yards, and let's get rid of the detail, and the Goodwood Digby Centre. So the mover of that motion is Councillor Burgess, and the seconder is Councillor Flannery.
Cameron.
Sorry, Cameron, thank you.
Burgess Cameron.
It's a natural to get yourself lucky, eh?
Can I get one of those too?
Maybe. Play the game. Maybe.
Councillors, is there any
We
further,
have done it one.
are there any further speakers for or against the motion? Okay, councillors, let's put this to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Hold on. 6.7, team. Say. Don't want to take us back to where we were. The Natural Disaster Flood Recovery Works package, going to confidential. So moved, Councillor Burgess and Councillor Rothwell.
I'm not doing any work for Yass.
I don't believe you have a conflict, so you don't.
His business, through you, his business is one of the contractors that's doing a lot of work for us for the DRFA recovery works, but this package isn't managed by clients.
Right, okay. Okay, councillors, we've moved that, moved a motion to put that into confidential. All those in favour? Carried to move it to confidential. I think we just.
Okay.
Sorry, we're not actually.
Correct.
Sorry, no,
we moved that. Yes. Item 6.18. The Yass Pool redevelopment project committee nomination, to put that into confidential. I don't, we have no one here to ask if they would object now.
They all went.
So moved to put it into confidential, that was Butler and Councillor Butler and Burgess. All those in favour, carried. Here we are, I've left it behind. We're jumping back, councillors, to the 6.1, although it's actually, that's not the right number. It would have been, we jumped ahead. 6.19. Let me just take us back to the 24-25 first quarterly budget review statements. So this is what you've received. Councillors, that's it. Yeah. Let's be touched base to the report actually. Just getting there. So this is a late report. It's the first quarterly budget review statements. I just note that what effort must have been required to link this up to the agenda. It's been overlooked. I thank the acting CEO who's been putting out fires and other things today, so thank you very much. Councillors, we have the recommendation that the quarterly budget statements and approved adjustments as detailed in the report be adopted. And in accordance with the local government general regulation clauses as set out, the council's financial position at 30th of September 24 be noted as being satisfactory, having regard to revised projected estimates of income and expenditure, and the original budgeted income and expenditure. So there's something else going on there. Typos. Original budgeted income and expenditure. What is the rest of that recommendation? Do we know?
Just the expenditure.
Yeah, it's okay. This happens. Extensions. Okay, councillors, we need by resolution to extend the time of this meeting. Is it okay. Do I have a mover to extend the time of this meeting by half an hour? Councillors Butler, Councillors Carter.
Only if you guys, please.
I note the foreshadowed motion, Councillor Roth.
I know we're not getting policy.
Oh, please call that.
Okay, all those in favour? Do you want to extend? Moved unanimously.
I was trying to get more pizza.
I thought that was the vote for pizza.
Councillors, at 7:50, we'll be clocking out here and under that. 7, 8. Can't count now. 8:20. Okay. So back to our first quarterly budget review statements. So the first part made sense. Let's just go back. The local government general regulation, council's financial position at 30 September, be noted as being satisfactory with regard to revised projected expenditure. Be noted. Be noted.
It already says that, so it just finishes at expenditure.
Sorry, I'll need you to speak up.
It already says to be noted, so it simply just finishes at expenditure.
At expenditure, thank you.
I'm going to defer this to the possibility of reading, actually.
I quite agree.
Thank you.
What are we doing?
Defer.
So the recommendation is to defer this item to the December meeting, 2024.
Madam Mayor, just a nitpicky point before you do that. Can we add just accuracy in legislation, because there is a 2021 version of this Act and a 2005, and sometimes really confusing. So if we can add 2021 at the end of local government general regulation as to the current accurate piece of legislation.
Should say 2000.
Oh, sorry, in the summary, what were we talking about?
No, it should say in accordance with the local government general regulation, brackets New South Wales,
Yes.
2021.
Others,
Okay.
situations.
Just for accuracy's sake.
Yep. I've got it.
On the note.
That's better statistics.
Thank you, learned friend.
Correct, Martin.
Considerations. Yeah, defer consideration of the first quarterly budget review statements, 24-25, to the December meeting, or to the December ordinary meeting, council, 2024.
Delete 1 and 2.
That'll do. Can we chuck in the word consideration? I'm so sorry, I just need that extra little bit. Okay, thank you. Councillors, we have a motion before you. Any speakers against? Any further speakers for? We put the motion, all those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Councillors, let's get back to our rest of our agenda. So we're up to 9.1, the minutes of the Rescue and Local Emergency Management Committee meetings held on 8th of August 2024. Do I have a mover? Councillor Cameron and Councillor Carter. Any speakers for and against? Let's put the
No.
let's put the motion
Oh, that's good.
carried. Turning to item 9.2, minutes of the local traffic committee held on 8th of November 2024. There are two items which cover a matter that requires us to bring this before you out of the minutes. Also, do we have a mover? Councillor Cameron? Yeah, we have a mover, Councillor Cameron, and we have a seconder, Councillor Rothwell. I'm giving it to Councillor Rothwell, Councillor Flannery, because he was faster, and it's his committee. Okay, Councillor Bird. Question.
Why are we putting 50 k's from the Barton Highway to Yass? Look, 50 k's is roadie.
Can I,
Going to the Barton Highway, Yass Motor Road to the Barton Highway.
Page 802.
page 802, it's a misprint, as far as I'm concerned. I know you guys are speed demons and you want to go fast. I think you should stick to 50 myself, but the idea was, in the discussion, was to move it up once Hamilton Rise is finished, the 50 will come out a bit further to the end, and then it'll be 80 all the way to the Barton Highway, 80. And then it'll be 80 all the way to the Hume on Gas Valley. And that's what's happening, 80.
So we'll have
Not 50.
consistency.
Sorry? Yeah.
We'll have consistency. All revenue.
Sorry?
All revenue.
No, I don't think that's the case, it's safety, it's safety says.
Through the mayor, just to
Sorry.
note that in relation to Hamilton Rise, I think the intention was always to reduce the speed limit once that subdivision was
Yeah,
finalised.
move it up.
And once a request has also been asked for, and the RMS will, once they look, if it meets their specs, they're going to recommend it. Okay, yes, another question.
Another one, Sutton Road.
You're learning.
They're gonna put 80 on Sutton Road from Gundaroo, is that right?
Correct.
They've done them with Yass.
Yeah, they've done it at Queanbeyan too. More revenue.
That's what it is.
Back Creek Road, Mulligan Slope Road and Gundaroo Road.
Can your truck go over,
Mine can't.
I don't think knows, because I know it's on the bloody Wheel Road area now, who just zoom on the dirt road.
Through you, Madam Mayor,
Just there.
can I make a comment that, yeah, I've got the bad news that basically Transport for New South Wales is looking at in a lot of different areas throughout the valley, throughout the state. That's their intention.
Councillor Flannery.
With respect, they're trying to get rid of cars, Councillor Cameron, so
Sounds fair enough
it's
to me.
very frustrating, it's difficult for people in Yass who commute to Canberra because we have insufficient public transport services actually going on. I just wonder whether council considers all the impact of these developments. Having moved to Canberra for close to 30 years for work, now we have egress paths, sorry, brain too tired at the moment, that just seem very haphazard, and so I feel that we are allowing developments without really considering the full impact of traffic, and I know we look at traffic in an isolated context, but it would be very helpful if we took a more strategic approach to it, particularly around the Murray area and future developments coming on board there.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Councillor Carter.
I'll just speak briefly about this, and I want to recognise the Smiths, correct?
Yes, correct.
You spoke at the beginning of this. I mean, the problem, of course, about all of these things is that we're looking at quality of life issues. We're talking about the ability to have a night's sleep in your own home, and you've got an 18-wheeler sitting right outside, reverberating around. I have similar issues at times where I live as well, less commonly, but certainly there are trucks that park there reasonably regularly. I think we should be certainly agitating as a council quite strongly that this be reconsidered. I know that there is some talking about potentially putting a lot somewhere near the rec grounds, but if we're moving to put a playground potentially in the rec grounds, we don't particularly want 18-wheeler trucks driving right into there as well. And so it might be a question of thinking about where there might be alternative sites in Murray Abatement for this. I expect there might be a DA coming to our next meeting around that might pose some solutions to this, although it's possibly a long walk from there to the Vogue Hotel, that is. But the broad problem is that while it's easy from a functional perspective to say we shouldn't be recommending vehicle load limits or other bits and pieces, ultimately the people that lose out of this are people that have purchased into failure estate, create safety issues for children, create safety issues for those that are trying to live their lives there. And so I suspect this should be something that we take back and agitate against. Part of perhaps a broader Murray Abatement safety review with respect to traffic, in the sense that there probably isn't a safe way to cross the dart in its current methodology, but certainly there's some broader issues in that space as well. So I think given the very real lived impacts of this, we should be agitating as heavily as we can to reconsider that. Yes, it's good to have a motel there, but if it's at the expense of the ability of residents to live calm, quiet lives, then actually that's a real problem for us.
Councillor David, was that the preamble for a foreshadowed motion?
Not yet.
May I just add, I'd like the Bunwell resident, Mrs. Dyball, that contacted me, and it was the letter was sent to Director Cook to be considered as part of the broader strategies around trucks parking in areas in front of residential houses where their amenity is really being diminished.
If I could ask a question of the Director of Infrastructure, because I've been given conflicting advice, one from the Police Department which says there has been a change in the legislation that allows truck drivers to sleep at their residence and park in front of their residence. I'm not sure if that extrapolates to other residential areas.
I don't believe it does.
Sorry?
It doesn't.
It doesn't, so
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. So my understanding is under the New South Wales road rules, anything over 4.5 tonnes or 7.5 metres in length can't park in a residential area for any longer than 1 hour. That's what we've been working off.
Councillors, just as an aside, during our Mondays with the Mayor and Deputy, afterwards we met with the Police Inspector Dan Callahan. He's committed to tasking officers to patrol that area, noting that they can't be there 24/7.
and that truck drivers do have the right to park and, you know, purchase a coffee, purchase, you know, food, do their other things that they need to do in the area. But I think it's a very different scenario that we've been presented with from the Smiths, and I think if the shoe was out on our foot, we'd be searching for a solution and a good night's sleep too. Councillors, how do you feel about receiving these committee notes and requesting further review of item 1, that the committee does not support the implementation of vehicle load limits in Fairlie Estate, that we ask that committee to review that stance. They may reject it.
What we want to do is try and find something for the trucks to park, which is the workarounds.
That's not going to help Mr. Smith though.
Well, if we can get the trucks somewhere to park.
Yes, I agree.
But they're supposed to be able to be enforced anyway now. So the police are allowed to book them, our compliance officers are allowed to book them too, aren't they?
Shouldn't we signpost it too? So that
The reason we didn't, because it's in legislation, but if you think.
it's a residential street.
Yeah.
Are we able to include Vineland in the similar,
We should.
because they have the same issue with Mrs. Dyball, who's repeatedly asked for trucks not to park there. She has exactly the same issues as Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
So
I
this is,
think,
this is statutory committee. So if we put a motion in direct conflict with this, that then triggers the attention of the state member. From recollection, I used to chair this committee. Councillor Cameron, are you going to assist me in this?
Oh, I was going to say a couple of things. This issue's come up about 3 times in the local traffic committee. And one of the things was I was asked to take it to the MCA, the Maritime Community Association, which I did. They had a clue about it. They didn't, you know, so it's a part of the problem is it's a very, very small street, as I said, very small street, 3 houses. It's really only affecting a very small number of people. Like, I know that's not a good enough sort of example, but when we started to think about, you know, where you put all the signs for, you know, no trucks allowed, although the problem is sort of going over to Hercules Street to some extent as well, because of the takeaway, and which is popular with truckies as well. So there's a whole lot of problems. The other problem is we have a safety person on the committee, and she's very, very good. And she's basically saying we've got to really look at the safety of people on the highway. That truck drivers need somewhere to stay, and somewhere to sort of get food, get accommodation, get a drink if they need it, whatever. So, and there's really nothing, you know, there's nothing around it. It's just, it would be very interesting to really find out why the trucks stop in Murrumbidgee and why they stop. You know, why don't they stop in Canberra? Why don't they stop in Yass up at the truck stop? Sure.
I don't concur with Councillor Cameron's view that we have to look at numbers alone. You know, the effect on people's amenity, just speaking from a personal experience, I live in an area where people come and recreate at all hours of the day and night. They turn loud music on, they do a whole lot of things that is incredibly unpleasant and quite threatening, and particularly for older couples, as Mr and Mrs Smith are, as is Mrs Dyball. I do think that we should look at them just not as a number, but really as the impact on their life, and we want people to age in place and not to be frightened off by moving transport around or.
I'll just say, sorry.
Jesus, I'm already up.
Councillors, I've got Councillor Cameron as the mover and Councillor Rothwell as the seconder. So if Councillor Cameron speaks now, you will be closing the debate. So Councillor Rothwell, you have the floor.
All right.
I'd like to help those people greatly, obviously. But we need someone to be able to go there and book the trucks. So that's the problem.
We can send out compliance officers, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that is what.
Can I take some advice on that, please? Because it's my understanding that's a police jurisdiction, but
Through you, Madam Chair, I think the New South Wales Police have offered to do some compliance around that. I think in the first instance we should accept that.
Yeah.
I know that the compliance officers have been dealing or trying to deal with this matter for some time. The issue is that if they're parking overnight, then I have to schedule staff to operate overnight and council has to pay overtime, so you need to note that in your considerations. So I would suggest in the first instance, let's work with the New South Wales Police, particularly since they've offered, sorry?
Maybe take a couple of notifications.
Yes, good, yes.
Okay, councillors, do we have any further debate? And if not, Councillor Cameron, would you like to close? Okay, I acknowledge that this is a difficult one.
It is a complex.
Councillors prepared to vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. And I do note the item on the bottom of that where Council and Chief of New South Wales are going to continue to consider alternate parking arrangements. Let's be doing our best to do that. We're now moving into our confidential